Good evening and welcome to the September 3rd, 2014 Town Board meeting. And I'll officially call the meeting to order. I'll ask that we please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Cole.
Here.
LaFountain.
Here.
Metzler.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Here.
Before we get started in with our budget message and with our two public hearings, I'd like to recognize Gary Richardson and Janet Flanagan, who are here to talk to us a little bit about the upcoming Friends of the Penfield Library annual bookstore. Gary.
Thank you. My name's Gary Richardson. I live at 48 Cardigan Square in Penfield here. Excuse me. And I'm here with the co-chairman, Janet Flanagan. We are the co-chairman of the volunteers of the Penfield Library book sale, the annual sale. And our sale is coming up starts on September 9th, which is a week from yesterday. And I just want to let everybody know that we're doing everything pretty much the way we've done it in the past. We're going to have probably between 85 and 90,000 items for sale. The donations have been very strong this year. We purchased a semi-trailer for storage last year, and that semi-trailer is full, and we're in an overflow situation in one of our storerooms in the library with donations, so they've been very strong this year. We will be selling books, LPs, CDs, cassettes, DVDs, the things you usually see at a used book sale. We've held the line on pricing. Hardback books will be $1, paperback books will be 50 cents, and the other things will be priced accordingly. Excuse me, most of the items are donated. Some of the items, probably about 15% of the items, of all the items, are discards from the library. But the majority of our things for sale have been donated by our patrons to the library. We're starting next Tuesday, September 9th at 2 p.m. and running till 9 p.m. And that's our members-only sale. If you're a member of the the Friends of the Penfield Library, you can come in and shop. If you aren't a member and you want to pay $5 a family, you can come in and shop that during that time. On Wednesday, the 10th, and Thursday, the 11th, we have our regular free admission sale starting at 10 a.m. and running through 9 p.m., excuse me, both days. And then on Friday, the 12th, we start a little early. We start at 9 a.m. We run through 2 p.m. Excuse me, we start at 10 a.m. and run till 9 p.m. It's free admission. And Friday is our half-price sale. And so 25 cents for a paperback and 50 cents for a hardback, which is pretty good. Then on Saturday, the following Saturday, we'll be holding our $3 a bag sale. And that is if you bring in a conventional size bag that you get from Wegmans if you want to, or Tops or whatever, or if you want to take one of our paper bags, grocery paper bags, and put anything in it you want to, it's $3 for that bag. And that's how we get rid of a lot of our books. And then we're going to start our cleanup at the end of that on Saturday. The location again is at the Penfield Community Center on Baird Road, where it has been in the past. We will have a total of 4 rooms over there full of books and records and all kinds of things. We invite everybody to come and take a look. I think you'll find something you didn't know you needed. And but all of the proceeds go to benefit the Penfield Library, and our sorters and packers have been working throughout the year. They come in 2 and 3 days a week, every week, and process the donations as they come in and get it ready for the sale. And I say put it out in our storage trailer or in our storage room. And then next Saturday, we have a kind of a project where we have to move all of these books that are in boxes that are in the trailer and in the storeroom. We have to move all of those books into the rooms where the sale is going to occur. Well, that's way before I got involved. Someone had an excellent idea, and we work with the sports teams from the Penfield High School. And the Penfield baseball team and soccer team and lacrosse team, they all seem to show up and move books, and we clear that trailer and the storeroom out in a real quick time. And they move all the books into the rooms. And then on Sunday and Monday, our volunteers will be putting the books up on the tables and getting them in order ready for the sale. So that, I know you wanted me to go quick, so that was quick. Are there any questions?
I think again, sale starts when?
Tuesday.
Okay.
A week from yesterday, and that's the friends or the members only. And then Wednesday and Thursday are the free admission and regular pricing. And then Friday, everything is half price, and Saturday is the $3 bag sale.
And if I'm not a member today and I wanted to become a member, I would just stop in the library and pay my $5 and I become a member.
Exactly, or we will have a table at the sale on Tuesday if you want to pay your $5 at that particular time. We have a super salesperson that takes care of that. Diane Meyer, I think probably you're all familiar
Everybody
with
knows Diane, right?
But she handles the membership sales
good.
and on Tuesday. Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, I know the Friends have collected more than $25,000, and that money is used for those programs and equipment that maybe couldn't be funded by the library through their normal budget cycle funding, and it helps really expand or extend some programs that would not be otherwise in place.
Exactly. We work very closely with Bernadette Brinkman on when she finds she needs something that hasn't been in the budget right away. We usually can come up with the money to get it taken care of, and we handle some of the author programs that they have in there, and we even take care of the fish tank, or we pay to have the fish tank taken care of. But there are certain things that we try to do that benefit the library that she doesn't have in the budget and so forth. So that's how we do that.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it, Janet. Thank you.
Offhand, I ask you this every year. How much did the sale net last year?
It was somewhere between, I haven't seen I don't remember the number, excuse me for saying that, but it was somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000.
It's usually around, I'd say around 30,000. It's a tremendous event.
Yeah.
Many of my kids' books came from there, particularly when they're it's great for families when your kids are at the age where they're not very careful with the library books.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, we do that, and we're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop with all of the electronic books and the Nooks and so forth. We aren't sure how long this type of thing is going to be, something that we can continue to keep that level of donations or that level of earnings. But we've got some ideas. We're going to do some things this coming year to try to offset what may become a loss because of the electronic books. And we've got some ideas, and we hope they'll
If
work.
I have some books laying around I want to get rid of, are you still accepting them?
We'll take them right up till the day of the sale. In fact, we'll take them during the sale.
And then during the year, you bring them right into the library? There's a set
Bring them right in the
area.
library, and the librarians will set up a cart for you to put your books on, and if you need help, they'll even help you go out, bring them in from the parking lot and so forth. So,
Great. Thank you, Gary.
my
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you for the time.
We'll see you next year.
Okay.
Good luck. Good luck with the sale. Good to see you, Janet. Okay, we'll move on. The next item of business is the budget officer's message and information presentation of the 2015 tentative budget. This process started right after Memorial Day, where the department heads submit all of their materials to our controller, our director of finance, Bob Beeden. And then that starts the process of Bob and I meeting with the departments and looking for ways to make sure we're as efficient as possible. And so this is one of the single biggest actions that the town board takes on any given year is with regards to the budget. This sets the budget for the upcoming year. And as you'll see in a moment as Bob goes through, there'll be some projections over the next couple years as well. And Bob, before we get started, I'll just compliment you and all the department heads for the hard work that you have put together for this. I know that, each year I make reference to the fact I think this is your 33rd budget that you have put together. And so with that, Bob, and as Bob is getting ready to actually start this presentation, the link will be up online for the budget. It'll be under quick links, and so not only the presentation that Bob will be giving tonight, but also a summary of the budget will be available online. So with that, Mr. Beeden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony. As Tony mentioned, we will be discussing the 2015 tentative budget. First, we're going to look at our performance for 2014. When we take a look at our appropriations.
Bob, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I'm being told by our team downstairs that we got to click you on, and we'll do a quick test.
Is this better?
Huh? Is this better?
There we go. I think
Okay,
we hear it?
good.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Tony. When we take a look at our 2014 estimated appropriations, our total appropriations are $257,000 below the 2014 adopted budget. $151,000 of that is from personnel salaries. As people retire, we're not filling some of the positions, and when people retire, we're filling some of the positions with less salary. Our equipment is down $50,000 from the 2014 adopted budget. Contingency is down. We're not planning on using any of that this year. Employee benefits are slightly reduced, $11,800, and our capital outlay is down $61,000. Where we have some major increases for the appropriations is in contractual, especially in the SOP budget for the highway department. We've had a severe winter, and our SOP purchases are already completed, and we have to have the next 3 months of additional expenses for SOP. So that's reflected here. In the revenue for 2014 for our general highway and library funds, as you can see, our mortgage tax has been reduced by $200,000 due to the fact that people are not doing as much refinancing in Penfield. For the last 6 years, the interest rates have been so low, people have taken advantage of it. So it's at rock bottom now, and it's not any use for people to have to take advantage at this point. However, we still do have new building going on and new homes purchased. Our sales tax are up $300,000, which offsets this reduction of mortgage tax. Some of the other revenues that are down are other government services. Monroe County, we have not done a lot of repair work as we anticipated in the budget for 2014. And our snow and ice contract pretty well expires at the end of this year, and we had a severe winter, so it has been reduced. For next year, we hope to get some additional funds. And then the net effect to balance our 2014 budget, we will have to appropriate $372,673 to balance the appropriations. That's a favorable variance of about $82,000, which we can carry over into the 2015 budget. Leading into our 2015 tentative budget through 2017, we have some analysis. First is our tax rate analysis. In 2015, our assessment growth was 3.2% due to new construction. And we anticipate not having to have a tax rate for 2015, which is the same tax rate that we've had for the last 6 years. When we get into the future years, the town board likes us to take a look at a 3-year budget in order to address any financial situation that may affect the services of the town of Penfield. When you take a look at 2016, it's only an estimate, and we anticipate an increase of assessment growth of 1%, and for 2017 of 1%. Even though we show an estimated tax rate at $2.64, we can't control the mandates that we're getting from the governments, especially the state and federal government. At this time, we're trying to address in 2015 what those mandates are, but we're still concerned, and we won't really know what this tax rate will be until we get into 2015 and we take a look at 2016. But at this point in time, we just have a guesstimate for those 2 years. Hopefully we can still continue to maintain that, but when you take a look at the mandates that are coming up this way, it's going to be very difficult. Again, showing a tax chart. Our tax rate for 2015 at $2.64. That's been the same for the last 6 years, and much less than it was in 2008 at $2.94. So that's a 30-cent decrease. Then when you compare our tax rate with other jurisdictions, with the town of Penfield, especially the Penfield Central School District, you can see where that tax rate is about 70.1% of the total taxes. That's if a house is assessed at $160,000. Monroe County, 22.6%, and the town, the tax rate would be $2.64 with a 7.3% of the total taxes. If you live in the Webster Central School District, you will be paying about 65.7% of your total taxes. County of Monroe, 25.9%, in the town, 8.4%. Each year, we work with the County of Monroe to get our sales tax projections through the year 2017. And then we take this to the board, and due to the economic conditions that are facing us in the future, we take a conservative figure. And for 2015, 16, and 17, we estimated it $2,800,000, which is approximately 18% of our total revenues. Our bond payments have an effect on our tax rate. In 2015, we still have to pay the principal for our pool and locker room library project, which expires in the year 2019. We still have to pay for the land acquisition project, which expires in the year 2022. But as you can see, as we pay the principal each of these years, the interest is reduced and the total cost is getting less until it's retired in 2022. Leading into the 2015 tentative budget, our total appropriations are $278,977 below the 2014 budget. Again, the reductions are in our salaries, about $63,000 from the 2014 budget. Contractual costs, department heads have kept costs down as low as they possibly can in order to maintain the same services. It shows a reduction of about $283,540. We're not planning on using our contingency account. Employee benefits are down slightly from 2014 only because people have retired and those positions have not been filled. Our capital outlay projects are down $150,000. And again, as I showed you, our debt service from 2014 to 2015 has been reduced by $32,000. We do have some major costs affecting us for 2015, and that's to replace the highway department's vehicle inventory. We have two major pieces of equipment that we're purchasing in order for us to continue to have the great snow removal service in the highway department. Then we also have some contractual costs for construction. That's basically our CHIPS program, which funds our repairs to all the town roads and also for some of our Mott's Landing project. On the revenue side, our real property taxes, no tax rate increase, but the assessment growth of 3.18%, and that's us $242,900. Again, the other major increase is in our sales tax. We're planning on budgeting $2,800,000, which gives us another $100,000 for the 2015 budget. Where we have some reductions is other taxes, and that's due to the fact that our cable TV franchise fees have been going down each year as people are trying other avenues to watch their TV. Mortgage tax is down $150,000. There has not been a lot of refinancing in the community. However, there is a lot of new homes being built, so we feel that that's going to hit about $900,000 in 2015. Our local revenues are down slightly. State aid up slightly. The other factor affecting our budget again is the amount of money we're taking from the reserve fund to fund the replacement of equipment for the highway department. So to balance our 2015 budget, in order for us to maintain the same tax rate, we will appropriate $209,581 in surplus. And where does the budget go? 64% goes for personnel salaries plus benefits. That's down from 65% in 2014. Our equipment and capital projects are up 7% in 2015 from 4% in 2014. Our contractual costs is down from 24% in 2014 to 23% for 2015. Our town insurance remains the same at 1% of the total appropriations. Our debt service is 5%. That's down from 6% in 2014. Where does the dollar come from in our revenue structure? Real property taxes represents 48%. That's down from 52% in 2014. Our sales tax at 18%, that's up from 16% in 2014. Interfund revenues the same at 4%, state aid at 8%, down from 9% in 2014. Other governments the same at 7% of the total revenue. Local revenues are 12%, that's up from 8% in 2014. Appropriated reserve at 1%, appropriated surplus at 2%, that's the same as it was in 2014. Our estimated appropriation and revenues. As we explained, the town board likes to take a look at a 3-year budget in order to take a look at any financial situations that may affect the services of the town of Penfield. And this allows us to get after those issues so we can continue to maintain the same tax rate. And as you can see, we still have some mandates that we have to fund in 2016 and 17, but we do not know what the future brings. So this is only an estimate. And as we can take a look, our total appropriations are approximately $120,000 more than our 2015 budget, which brings it up to $16,082,000. For 2017, again, another $80,000 to the appropriation brings it up to $16,144,000. As you can see, the salaries are pretty consistent with merit raises and a slight increase in the consumer price index. Employee benefits, again, with the big costs of medical costs, the cost of retirement, and the cost of workers' comp, that's all included in these figures. Again, we have to replace the major equipment needs for the highway department, and they're included in 2016 and 17. Our contractual costs to fund the roads and other projects in the community are pretty much consistent. Insurance pretty much remains the same over those 2 years, and then our debt service pretty much remains going in the same direction. On the revenue side, for 2016, the assessment growth of 1%, nets us this much in real property tax, and another 1% for 2017. Then the other major revenue is our sales tax, which represents 18% of our total revenues. We figured at the same level as it has been in 2016 and 17. And then again, we're planning on transferring some money from the Highway Capital Reserve Fund for 2016 and 17 to offset the cost of equipment that we mentioned in the other slide for the replacement. And then our appropriated surplus to balance our 2016 budget. We will appropriate $200,000 to balance the budget, and for 2017, we'll balance the budget for 2017. The analysis of our fund balance for our general highway and library fund. When you take a look at our revenues for 2014 at $15,600,000, and you subtract the expenditures of almost 16 million, and subtract the amount of money that we had to replenish the reserve fund to replace equipment for the highway department of 700,000, brings our fund balance at the end of 2014 at 3,666,000. And when you appropriate the fund balance for 2015 for 209,600, for 2016 at 200,000, 2017 at 200,000, brings the total to about $3,056,911. This represents 19% of our total appropriations. And when you talk to Mooney Investor Services or all the other investment service corporations, they have recommended that our fund balance be between 15 to 20% in order for us to maintain our AA2 rating. And in 2015, we will be doing a serial bond for the sewer project at $2,440,000. So this will allow us to save interest on that bond by keeping our AA2 rating with Mooney Investors. Again, we have two major reserve funds, our General Reserve and our Highway Capital Reserve Fund. The General Reserve Fund, our balance at the end of 2014 was about $511,338. When we get into 2015, our balance will be approximately $726,000. This will be used to fund major pieces of equipment that are scheduled to be replaced for the Parks Department, or some of our staff may need some equipment, vehicles to run their operations. And so we're using these funds for those purposes. And when the purchase is going to happen, if that's the decision made by the board, then we can appropriate the money out of these funds to do that. As you can see in the Capital Reserve Fund, the town board has already made a decision to take $256,000 out of the Highway Capital Reserve Fund to fund approximately $500,000 worth of equipment for the Highway Department for 2015. So their Highway Capital Fund balance for their equipment needs will be about $412,000 at the end of December 2015. Then we get into 2015 special district budgets. First one, the Drainage District. The 2015 drainage rate is $3.83 per unit, or $38.30 per homeowner. This is an increase of $1.20 from 2014. The 2015 budget includes payment for debt service for the Thomas Cove and Consolidated Water Districts. The 2015 budget will be less than a penny per thousand, or an average charge of 47 cents per average homeowner in the townwide Consolidated Water District. The Thomas Cove Water District will pay $1.53 per thousand, or $244.64 per homeowner. The 2015 budget for the townwide lighting district is 6 cents per thousand, or $9.44 per average homeowner, which is less than 2014 by $1.12. The 2015 tax levy for the intensified lighting district is $27.26. This is a decrease of $1.80 per homeowner from 2014. The 2015 unit charge for sewer operation and maintenance is anticipated at $41.44 per residential home, which is an increase of $1.65 from the 2014 tax levy. The 2015 unit charge for the sewer debt service is anticipated to be $67.81. This should be the same as the 2014 tax levy. The 2015 budget for the ambulance district number 1, which is our Penfield volunteer ambulance service, is 2 cents per thousand. The average home will pay $3.63. The 2015 budget for district number 2, which is our northeast quadrant, is a penny per thousand. The average home will pay $2.08 during 2015. This is an 86-cent decrease from 2014. This evening, the supervisor presented the 2015 tentative budget. From September 4th through October 10th, there'll be the public comment period. October 1st, 2014, there'll be a public hearing on the 2015 preliminary budget. And then on October 15th, 2014, the town board will approve the final 2015 budget. Town board has always approved the town budget before the election, every year. And if anybody needs to look at the budget, it's on the website as you speak. You can give me a call. You can meet me in my office, and I'll be glad to discuss the budgets with you. Thank you.
Bob, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, 340-8621.
8621. 340-8621.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. This satisfies the requirement for presenting the tentative budget. As Bob has indicated, from tonight through the 10th of October, we are accepting comments, thoughts, ideas, or otherwise. Again, if you'd like to make an appointment with Mr. Beeden, please feel free to do so. You can also go online and see the entire budget and the breakdown of the budget. Bob, thank you again. Thank you. We appreciate it. A lot of great work by you and all the department heads, so thank you. We'll move on to our first public hearing this evening, and I'd ask our clerk to please call that legal.
To allow a 176 boat slip expansion to the Southpoint Marina and an accessory 3750 square foot clubhouse, restaurant, and pool on 13.28 acres at 1384 and 1420 Empire Boulevard, located in the LaSalle's Landing Development Zoning District. The legal was published in the Penfield Post on August 21st, 2014, posted on the town's website and the town clerk bulletin board. 6 postcards were mailed and 3 homeowner associations were notified.
Okay. We have before us quite a bit of paperwork that has been submitted over probably the last 11 or 12 months, and would ask that you go through and give us an overview and talk about the project, all of the data associated with that, even though we have it in front of us, so we have that for the record. And then once we get from there, we'll get into the Q&A piece of that as well.
Sure. And again, my name is Jess Scull. I'm from Passero Associates. Here with me this evening as part of our development team are Anthony and Danny Daniele, also John Caruso, who is the president of Passero Associates, and Dr. Jim Haynes, who is our biologist who would participated in the environmental impact study and its preparation, in addition to all the studies that went along with that, which we've been conducting over the past 6 months or so. Again, I'm just going to give a summary. Obviously, can't go through every detail of the impact study. And then, where this is in the process is this is a public hearing. We will be recording all the comments that we received this evening, then ultimately responding to those comments as part of the final environmental impact statement. Once again, we've received all the comments not only from this evening, but also any other written comments from the public, and then also from the interested and involved agencies that are part of the seeker process. The DEIS, which is the draft environmental impact statement, was accepted last month as complete, and that is obviously a document that you all have in front of you this evening, and the one that we will be discussing and taking comment on. So just again to give an overview of the project, the proposal is a 176 slip marina expansion to the existing Southpoint Cove Marina located at 1384 Empire Boulevard, right behind the Basil's restaurant. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that area. The proposal also includes at the southeast corner a 3,750 square foot footprint building which will serve as a clubhouse to the marina members, which is primarily located on the first floor, and on the second floor will be a restaurant which is open to the public. As I'll get into here in a little bit, pulling the public into our project, both through the construction of commercial property, which is set forth in multiple plans and studies that the town has adopted over the years, and actual public access down to the water has been an integral part of the entire project. Lastly, one of the other things that's included in the project is the construction of an additional parking lot to service the new development. One thing I did want to point out before we get too far into it, there's a lot of talk on traffic and the construction of a turn lane and traffic improvements. Traffic has been a paramount issue to the town board, our developers all along. Just to give the board an update on where the traffic stands on Empire Boulevard, as part of the apartment project that is currently under construction and separate from our project, they will be beginning construction on that two-way left turn lane at the beginning of next week and actually mobilizing at the end of this week. So any of you that might have been wondering what exactly has been going on there, I just wanted to provide that little update. So we kind of, when we're discussing the project, we separate it into two different areas. One of them is the land side portion of the project, which is the clubhouse, the parking area, the roads, the pedestrians, and that type of thing. And the second part is the water side. That's where we get into the amount of docks, really the biology, the habitat, also navigation of boats to and from the marina, where they go, and that type of thing. So I was going to start with the land side, talk a little bit about that. Most of you are familiar with that, and there's, quite honestly, not a whole lot to it. Then we'll talk a little bit about the water side, the dock layout, that kind of thing, some things that have changed through this process. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Haynes because he has a good amount of information that he would like to share with you with respect to the findings of his 2014 study and also a little bit how they relate to what they found in 2002 when they originally did the study of Irondequoit Bay. So on the land side of the project, the most notable component of it is the proposed 3,750 square foot building that we are proposing. It was actually noted earlier on in this process that the original proposal way back that we submitted as a site plan some almost 2 years ago had a 2,700 square foot building in that location. So the actual footprint of the building has gotten slightly larger, and I just wanted to explain the reasoning for that is that we always planned on having roughly seating in our restaurant area for 100 patrons, and we put down a building that we kind of, just took an educated guess at. But then once the project started to progress and once we started to review the building codes and look at things like, okay, well, we actually need this bathroom to be bigger and we actually need 2 bathrooms and we need the bigger hallways, and when you review the fire code, this is how many square foot you need per person. What it did was it caused us to expand the footprint of the building slightly. So, the actual end usage and the amount of people coming to that building has not changed. It's just that in order to comply with all the applicable code requirements, the building did have to get a little bit bigger. The good news with that is that based on where it's located, which is away from the steep slopes from the most part, and back behind the 100-foot wetland adjacent area, we were able to do all that without impacting any of those environmentally sensitive areas. So, we didn't have any more significant environmental impact. And as part of that building, we're also proposing a pool out front, which would be, designated for the Marina members that could go there, after they get done boating or what have you. And then again, as I mentioned, there is that parking area. There's actually I don't want to lose my microphone here, but right through here is actually where the secondary access comes down from the apartment project under an access easement and eventually gets out to Empire Boulevard, where the new 2-way left turn lane will be located. Our parking lot is constructed on either side of that with roughly 151 new spaces. As part of the environmental impact statement, we did a pretty thorough parking analysis where we looked at the amount of spaces required for the marina, the amount of spaces required for Basil's restaurant, and the amount of spaces required for our new use. The benefit that we had of doing that parking study was that we were able to determine the anticipated number of vehicles based on the existing marina use. So we looked at Memorial Day, we looked at 4th of July, we looked at those big days, determined how many cars were in the parking lot, and then we're able to develop a ratio, with some years of data using that. So, and actually as currently designed, the parking lot has additional capacity. And one of the reasons for that is the original proposal had 225 boat slips or docks. We're now down to only 176. All along, we haven't changed the scope or size of the parking lot. So, the parking lot stands intact with less boat slips. Therefore, our surplus actually went up a bit. The other major component of the landside project, as I mentioned, is the access. We've actually highlighted it in yellow here. And, the real first trigger that allowed us to bring the public access and make it more contiguous along Empire Boulevard was when the developers of the apartment project got that project approved and started construction. They'll be bringing a public sidewalk along Empire Boulevard all the way down to the front of our project. It'll actually turn into their project and then head over to the marina. And that's what you see here in yellow, where it comes down, heads back into their project briefly, through our project, out to a public lookout area. That area is specific designated because it provides scenic access to the cove area, the adjacent hill. There's some pretty interesting topography out there and existing vegetation. And then we actually went so far, and something that's fairly a recent add as part of the preparation of the impact statement was extending an easement all the way along and down to the water along the frontage of our property. So that such, should something develop an opportunity, more of a regional opportunity to develop some kind of sidewalk in that area, we're opening the door for that possibility. And then there's, of course, the rest of the access down along the front of Basil's. So that was a big change where we were not prepared to, or not, I shouldn't say we're not prepared, but we were not offering as much public access the first time through. So we have incorporated those elements. We've also, over here to the left, proposed public access to an existing boat launch that some of you have seen. It's kind of an outlier. It's on the other side of, where the creek comes through there and where the culvert is. People have always used it as if it was public, but it's never really been formalized. And the Daniellis were willing to say, you know what, let's memorialize that. We'll make that public access. We'll allow people to be there. We won't go kick them out of there. So we're actually proposing to formalize that area with a new public access easement so that people can continue to use that area. Similarly to the parking study, when we redid our traffic study, what we found was that everything was the same or better than it was studied way back when the original traffic study for the area was done some 3 years ago. One of the primary reasons for that, again, is the reduction in the size and scope of the project with respect to number of slips, but also on the project to the east, as this board is well aware, the number of units has come down some bit, and there's actually 100 less beds now approved as part of that project than when the traffic study was originally done. So, if beds translate to people, we're expecting 100 less people for the project next to us, which ultimately drives to our project, to be, exiting out onto the road network. So, with all these different reductions, the findings of that study were, again, better in terms of capacity and delay than they were with the traffic that was approved by the DOT, again, 3 years ago. And, even with all that said, the mitigation proposed and currently proposed to be constructed is all going to be well underway in about a week or so now. So look for that to be coming. So that's the summary on the land side. On the water side, I mentioned the current proposal and that it reduces the amount of docks. It also reduces the amount of water area that the docks originally covered. During the original proposal, we were encompassing between 4.5 and 5 acres. We've really scaled that back. So right now, the coverage area of the docks themselves is just under 2.5 acres. So, in addition to less docks, it's less area that takes, which in turn is more area that's left open water for the cove. The reduction has also allowed us to increase the separation of the docks from the Eagle's Nest. If some of you recall the magic 660 feet, we're now within that range, the acceptable range, as we've discussed with the DEC some time. We also have some navigation improvements to that area where we propose some buoys along the shoreline. We had actually had those buoys further out at one point, but based on meetings and discussions with the DEC, I should say, they asked us to take those in and basically put them at the low water line. So you wouldn't have boats going too close to shoreline where the water would be a little bit shallower and they could, dig up some of the underlying soil and muck and, that kind of thing that's there. So, again, it's reduction in the size of it and the scope, the buoy improvements, getting away from the Eagle's Nest. And then most importantly, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Haynes now because a large part of what we were looking at waterside did have to do with his biological studies.
Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor LaFountain. Good evening, board members. Good evening, members of the audience. I'm Jim Haynes. I'm a professor at the SUNY College at Brockport. I've been there 37 years, and I'm a fish ecologist by training, so that's why I was brought in for the biological part of the study. I'm sure you're aware that in 2002, I headed a team that surveyed all of Irondequoit Bay for the same kinds of things that were looked for in 2014 in Southpoint Cove. In 2002, we looked at 6 different areas based on their abundance of aquatic macrophytes, which are submerged aquatic plants. So they're rooted aquatic plants, but they grow in the water toward the surface, but do not extend much beyond the surface. Why did we look at those areas and not other areas of the bay? And in particular, why didn't we look at Southpoint Cove in 2002? The reason is that when we looked in 2002, there were no aquatic macrophytes in Southpoint Cove. Why are aquatic macrophytes important? It's because they serve as habitat for other organisms that are important to the ecological functioning of the system. If you have aquatic macrophytes, you have aquatic invertebrates that live on the macrophytes. If you have aquatic macrophytes, you have habitat that young fish can hide in. They call that nursery habitat. Why is it a good place to hide? It protects them from predators like the northern pike and the largemouth bass that are fairly abundant in the system, and there's small invertebrates there that they can eat. With macrophytes, good fish habitat. Without macrophytes, no fish habitat. We didn't find any macrophytes in 2002. We didn't find any in 2014, and we looked twice. We looked once in May, and we looked again in July when the whole bay was full of macrophytes, and they weren't there. Why weren't the macrophytes present in Southpoint Cove in either year? It's because the water is very deep, which is a nice thing. It's between 5 and 6 feet deep. But it's also very turbid, which means there's a lot of debris, dissolved and particulate debris in the water, which prevents light penetration to the bottom. Even if seeds of aquatic macrophytes were there, no light gets down there to help them germinate. And so with that deep water, and the turbidity is such that you can't see down in the water more than about let me put it another way, more than about 2 feet. It's 6 feet deep, so there's a tremendous amount of dark area underneath the surface that plants can't grow in. So no plants, no invertebrates, no nursery area, no fish. Now no small fish. That doesn't mean that there weren't fish in there. We electrofished for the better part of a day in 4 different sections of the project area. We electrofished in the currently developed shoreline near the existing docks and near the restaurant and the other buildings that are there. If you've been there, you know that it's grass up to rocks right along the surface and very muddy right off that shore. We also went to the less developed shoreline on the east side of the docks, and then we went out in the open water in and around the current boat docks where there were actually boats present, and then we went through the footprint of the area. We spent equal amounts of time in all those areas. It was 15 minutes of power-on electrofishing, which takes 30 to 45 minutes actually of time to do because the current's not going in the water all the time. The greatest diversity and abundance of fish was found on the existing riprap grassed shoreline near the existing docks and near the terrestrial facilities. The second greatest amount was found on the less developed shoreline east of the Marina. Third greatest amount was under the existing boat docks and boats, and the least, and this is the fewest species and the smallest numbers, were found in the open water where the proposed boat docks are going to go. The species that were found there were primarily migratory fishes, gizzard shad from Lake Ontario. They reproduce all over Irondequoit Bay. It was the young of gizzard shad. They'll be leaving for the lake at some point. So there was no evidence of any reproduction or sensitive species where the new boat docks are going to go. So as a result of those findings, in my professional opinion, there is going to be no aquatic biological impact of this project.
Yeah, and Dr. Haynes, touched on, many things, and one of the big things was water depth, and water depth is really what drives the ability for us to construct basically the marina without having a large amount of environmental impact. And I don't know how many of you got a chance to look at page 53 of the impact statement, but one of the reasons why you do an environmental impact statement is to look at alternatives. If not here, then where? Or if here, then how? We went through and we inventoried the entire Irondequoit Bay and looked at how do we meet the current boat demand that we know is there through the Irondequoit Bay Harbor Management Plan. Where else could this demand for additional slips be met? And, quite frankly, we didn't have to make any kind of stretch. I mean, this area was by far the best area. For one, water depth. Most marinas are shallower. They have all those macrophytes that Dr. Haynes was speaking of. As a matter of fact, if you go look at some of the existing marinas, you'll see that they're all kind of overgrown with macrophytes. We also have, no need to dredge. When you dredge, what you end up doing, especially in those more shallow areas, is you actually have to scrape and remove macrophytes, we don't have to dredge and we don't have the microphytes to begin with. We also have the ability to provide parking. A lot of the marinas are located, you kind of have to snake through existing residential neighborhoods, which, you know, is not good either because you don't want people with their boats driving through the neighborhoods or having a lot of additional traffic. But then when you get to them, there's not a lot of parking, so it becomes crowded. Then people start parking on residential streets and this, that, and so on. You know, we have the ability to provide that parking on site. Then we also have the ability to have immediate access to the state highway system by getting on Empire Boulevard in a safe fashion. And then lastly, you know, as Dr. Haynes just talked about, the biology is just not there, so we're not going to have a significant impact on the biology. So we did look around the whole bay, and we did a thorough analysis of not just those items, but, you know, several others. And quite frankly, the Southpoint Cove Marina really did check out at the top of the list of almost every single one that we did look at. And then again, we did an alternatives analysis on the site itself. We looked at going farther north. We looked at going further to the west, but, you know, for reasons spoken of earlier in terms of affecting navigational channels or, you know, utilizing the water depth, you know, it just made sense for us to expand to the east. So I just wanted to make mention of that because that is a fairly important component of the process of going through an environmental impact statement. Lastly, I also have here with me a rendering of the, and I'll try to hold this up, I don't know if you can see it here. This is what the proposed clubhouse building will look like. It is included in the environmental impact statement. This view from here will actually be from Empire Boulevard, or the southern view, where you'll see this is the first floor here, which will be the restaurant with some outdoor seating, and then the pool and clubhouse area are located beneath that. This full two-story face is basically what it would look like if you were looking at the clubhouse from Basil's, or more of the west elevation. It's 2 stories. Same architect who actually did the apartment project, so we tried to incorporate similar materials, similar nautical themes, so that fits in with some of the other area-wide development. So, you know, again, we'd be happy to answer any questions that might be specific to the appearance and aesthetics of the building itself. So with that, I will turn it over to the board or to the public. We will be taking notes and jotting all the comments down. Again, as part of the process, it will be our responsibility to answer all those in the final environmental impact statement. But anything that comes up that needs clarification, our team here will be happy to answer those questions this evening.
Okay, great, thank you. And we'll open it up to the board for discussion or comments. Board?
Well, I'd like to start with the last slide you presented there. That is the proposed configuration of the 3,700 square foot building, is that correct?
This one is here, yes.
Okay, so the one that we have is slightly different. I think this one was more to the 2,700.
No, the building drawing that is in the environmental impact statement is the 3,750 square foot and identical to this drawing that's printed out full scale.
Okay, then I must have seen a different one in here. Okay, so can you walk me through in the additional 1,000 square foot to that building? Can you kind of walk through, is it the same operation on both the first and second floor, same hours, same use, same occupancy inside?
Yes, in terms of occupancy, employees, use, is all the same as it was previously presented. Again, you know, we kind of had the same program all along. It was just once we thoroughly vetted some of the, you know, building code items and, you know, what would be required for fire code and for that particular occupancy, pushed out the walls here and there. We had to add a bathroom. We had to make some hallways bigger. We had to make our dining area a little bit bigger to accommodate the 100 occupants. But the environmental impact statement that, you know, is submitted on file totally accounts for everything. The 2,700 square foot actually goes all the way back to our original submission, which I believe, I don't want to say it was November 2012, or it might have been 2011.
Okay.
I was curious about the restaurant that's going to be open to the public. Do you have a proposed operator?
No, we're working with some potential operators now. We don't have one that was necessarily signed on board yet, so we're talking to a couple of different people. You know, anyone that the Daniellis do speak with, make it pretty clear that, you know, what we're proposing, both in terms of size, building, occupants, use, appearance, is pretty much set in stone. There's not too much flexibility with that because all those things are part of this process. But no, we don't have an operator just yet.
Well, what do you foresee as the potential occupancy inside and out for the dining area?
For total amount of people? Well, it's going to be designed based on occupancy of around 100. You know, and that's based on the inside. We've also provided outdoor seating so that some people want to go outside. You know, we'd have the ability to have a little bit of overflow if it was a busy day on 4th of July and we get a bunch of people, they'll have the ability to wait outside or, possibly dine out there.
What are the hours of operation?
In terms of the,
Restaurant and clubhouse?
well, they would be per town code. I don't know exactly the specifics. I don't know if Anthony, you have those hours nailed down, but because we don't have a user, we haven't nailed down, actual hours of operation, but we would ensure that they were compliant with, the local ordinances.
Would it be the same as Basil's?
Most likely it'd be very similar to Basil's.
And remind us again, hours of Basil's for the record? One of the two Danielles may need to come to the, thank you.
Good evening. Danny Daniele from Basil Restaurant in Southpoint. Hours of operation at Basil Restaurant are 7 days a week. We're open for dinner at 4 p.m. We close at 10 p.m. And we have a Sunday brunch, reasonably priced at $12.95. And that starts at 10:30 a.m., goes till 4, and then dinner till 10:30. Or I'm sorry, Sunday till 9.
Sunday till 9. Thank you. One of the favorite questions that always comes up in this area is music, outdoor music.
Right now, I don't believe there's any plans for any outdoor music or any kind of stage area or anything like that. There might be some ambient sound, from some speakers. But one of the benefits, again, to this area is, a lot of times you end up with restaurants in these neighborhood communities. Our nearest single-family neighbor is, over a half a mile away. But, I'm sure it would be local, just music played through, small speakers, not, outdoor events or that type of thing.
No live music.
Yeah, not without a permit.
Okay.
What do you foresee for signage for advertising that building from the street? Would it be?
Yeah, our plan is to have a sign, it's actually shown on our site plan out there, which would be a common sign, which would have signage for the Marina, signage for the restaurant, and then also signage for Basil's.
So the Basil sign existing would be incorporated, or?
Yes, in some form.
My questions will focus more on committees on which I serve. The Watershed Management Committee, we certainly are interested in drainage and the close proximity to the bay here. Can you just talk a little bit about the drainage plan and how the water is going to get from the site to the bay? And
Sure, and there's actually a couple of good things going on for us in terms of engineering with respect to drainage. For starters, because Ronacoit Bay is a large water body, we don't have typical downstream flooding concerns, which is good for us. And also, it's very sandy soils out there, as most of you probably know. What that allows us to do is take most of our stormwater and actually allow it to infiltrate into the ground, where we actually put in, you've probably heard these terms before, but rain gardens and bioretention areas, both of which are proposed for this project. So the water will actually drain from the parking lot into those areas, where they first go through a soil and stone media, which has plants growing in it, so it gives the plants enough water to grow. The plants also remove a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, and then it ultimately has the opportunity to infiltrate down into the ground, providing groundwater recharge, which is one of the main goals of the current state permit with green infrastructure and runoff reduction volume. So that's the plan for this project. There's also some existing storm sewers on site that we will be taking advantage of that already have current treatment units in place. And then there'll be an overflow, which is piped down to the shoreline of the bay, which is actually part of the DEC permit application, since it goes through that 100-foot adjacent area.
And additionally, our very hardworking Conservation Board, I know we have a member here tonight listening, they certainly vetted this out as well. Can you just address any comments they may have had and how those have been addressed as the process has gone along?
I have not received those written comments yet. I know they're scheduled to be delivered to us because as part of the FEIS, we do have to address them, but unfortunately, I don't have them now.
Okay.
If one of them comes up as part of the comment period, we'd be happy to address those then.
I know you were very receptive to some of their suggestions early on as I sat in on their meetings with respect to the public access and the lookout area as well. So certainly you've been receptive throughout this project to some of their concerns and certainly their advocacy with respect to conservation and public access.
Right, thank you for that.
You've made reference a couple times about this property being separate from the apartment property, Southpoint Cove Apartments. Could you say just a little bit about the separation of those properties and you know, any discussion around, you know, subdivision needs, if any?
Sure, and that was, there was some confusion several months ago in terms of which property was what in terms of actual address. But right here is the actually now existing property line which separates the two projects. Just for clerical purposes, the Southpoint Cove apartment, the Southpoint apartment project is made up of what was made up of, or is made up of former parcels 1420 Empire Boulevard and 1440 Empire Boulevard. This, of course, is 1384. That property line, which was recently filed with the county's clerk's office, separates the two. There was a process that the town board went through some months ago where that actual property line was modified. The reason for that modification had to do with that project becoming less dense and moving from 10 buildings down to 9 buildings, again, 100 less beds. Because that project became less dense, they quite frankly didn't need as much land in order to execute that project. So the amount of land that was transferred from 1384 Empire Boulevard to the apartment project was shrunk down from what was originally approved. So that line, the new line, was then, you know, taken through the, you know, local process here at the town and the town board, and then ultimately that was approved and has since been filed so that that project was able to, you know, finalize its financing and get started. But the line is shown on this plan is what exists actually today.
So we've talked about the restaurant portion of the land side building. How about the clubhouse portion? Who has access to that? What are the hours of operation of that? What do you see by way of, you know, a season for that? I'm guessing that may, in fact, you know, be a shorter season than the upstairs restaurant. And so if you could just give us an update on that.
Danny Daniele again. Regarding the clubhouse time that'll be available for the members will mirror the same time that we do the boats, which is roughly April 15th through October 15th. That's the period of time that boats go in the water. That's when they'll be using it, and ironically, that's when the weather's the warmest. After October 15th, before November 15th, in that time zone, depending on the weather, that's when we close up the pool, close up the whole downstairs of that clubhouse, and that kind of goes dormant for the year until the following year. That pool will be private for the Marina members. Depending on the demand that we have going forward with the Marina, we'll look at having options for members of the public to also purchase family packages or individual packages to also use that pool. But we're going to reserve that right until after we see what type of population from our own Marina is using that facility. We don't want to make it overcrowded, and the idea of that is to create a haven for the boaters to use when they're not on their boat.
So what is your anticipated membership, if you will, either from a minimum number that you need to make it successful, or what you consider to be the maximum level?
It's going to be based on the total slips that we end up with. I think we have 186 now, and we're getting an additional, hopefully, 176, I believe. I think the total comes to, it's on there, 382, roundabout a few. So that will be the total memberships, if you will, to the pool area. We've found in our experience that less than 50% of the boaters come out on any given sunny, nice weekend day. So on a very nice Saturday afternoon, when it's 85 and sunny, we'll get less than half the boaters to come out to use the Marina. So that being said, if we ever reached maximum capacity with the boaters at 380 boaters, you're looking at 175 families out there, of which we assume the majority of them will be using their boat. And they come in at different times throughout the day. So we're looking at the pool area probably holding between 45 to 55 people at a maximum capacity. But we haven't done the exact numbers, and that's where we're going to play it by ear based on how many people are using it. It's got a keypad code, so if we have, based on fire codes or whatever it might be, we can control the amount of people coming in and out. It's not a free-for-all.
Okay. And hours of operation of the clubhouse?
For the pool?
The clubhouse and pool?
The pool hours will be, we haven't decided exactly, but it's going to be roughly 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. roundabout. There'll be a 24-hour access to the bathrooms for the boaters. So hours of operation, we'll call it 10 to 6, 10 to 7, and then there'll be 24-hour access to the bathrooms. But there's not much activity at those times past.
Okay, thank you. Board, other questions or comments at this point?
The signage to identify that it's private, just, how are you going to do that for the clubhouse being under the public?
There'll be one main entrance to get into the pool area, and that's the area that there'll probably be, depending on how we finally draw it out, for that one spot, a gate with a keypad, and next to the keypad, just like at the Marina, it'll say members only, and basically you can't get in without the keypad. So there'll be a friendly reminder there saying this is a private pool club.
And the exterior lighting for the area?
I'll let the engineer do it.
Yeah, the lighting along the access way coming into the marina and then up to the apartment project will be the same decorative lighting, the 14-foot decorative lights that kind of have the string hanging down. I don't know how many of you remember the lights from that project, but that will be proposed along the main access way in. They're all LED fixtures, and they're designed again to match and kind of pull the whole area together. They're also very similar to the existing lights that are at Basil's restaurant, and then the parking lot lights themselves will be the same that are at Basil's now, except it's all going to be LED. Then on the building itself, we'll have some wall sconces or some downlights and wall sconces, in the patio areas.
Board, other questions at this point?
Okay.
Okay, why don't you sit tight? We'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this particular matter? This is for the Southpoint Marina expansion. Is there anyone that would like to address this particular matter? Thank you. Welcome, Rick.
Good evening. My name is Rick McInich. My wife, Ginny, and I reside at 28 Tomlinson Circle in Penfield. We've been Penfield homeowners, taxpayers, and active voters for the last 15 years. We both fully support this application for a number of reasons. I think we're fortunate to have a quality developer involved. The Daniellis have quite a track record in that regard, also as business owners, as well as good corporate citizens. I've had the pleasure of being a member at the Marina for about 8 years now, and have had just a very positive experience overall. I think this creates an asset to our community. One of the things that's changed not too long ago at the Basil restaurant was the addition of an outside patio. That patio is very popular. People wait to get to sit on that patio because they want to enjoy the outdoors. They want to enjoy the beautiful sights. The scenery from that patio is beautiful, a view of the bay. It's not all that common that we have beautiful weather, so people want to be outside and enjoying it. I've seen people walking along the available pathways that are there today. This project gives us another venue for that, another outdoor seating area, another restaurant that people can visit and take advantage of. I think you can look at that as people voting with their dollars. They're there today because they have this type of facility in some small part available as part of Basil's. The Marina is full and has quite a lengthy waiting list for people that want to be at this location, that want to take advantage of this type of quality facility. And again, I think their behavior demonstrates that I think a majority of the people in the town, as well as the greater community, would view this as an asset, as a very positive thing. The timing of this meeting for me is interesting because, like all other Penfield taxpayers and homeowners, I got a nice piece of mail in my mail this week. This was my school property tax bill. I was also impressed by Bob's presentation, and to me it's striking that for 6 years you've maintained that $2.54 tax rate, and that was a significant reduction from what it was previous to that point. But you're not going to be able to do that forever, given the status quo.
That's correct.
And I know previously you've talked to Mr. LaFountain about this in a number of situations. I know we're actively pursuing mixed-use districts. One of those is directly adjacent to my community, my neighborhood. Yet, I got to tell you, everything I've heard about it, I'm very pleased. I think it makes perfect sense for the town to broaden and diversify our tax base. One nice thing I see about Southpoint Cove Marina, they won't be sending any kids to our schools. Yet they'll be contributing to our schools' education. They'll be bringing jobs to our community. They'll be bringing people from outside our community to this destination to be able to take advantage of this asset. I was struck, Mr. LaFountain, when you said that you have in front of you quite a lengthy list of studies and information that's been provided, and that this has been ongoing over the last 12 months. Has it been a year?
Or more.
Or more, that this process has been going on. You know, as a taxpayer, again, the concern I have, and I operate my own small business, so I can look at this from the perspective of a business owner. I fear we run the risk of being viewed by developers as business unfriendly. I think we really have to be careful and cautious, because we can plan for mixed-use development, we can do these wonderful things on paper, but ultimately we have to get the developers to want to come to our town, to want to invest in our town, and to bring us the benefits that come from these assets, from these additional tax dollars, and from these jobs. You know, for some people, the only reasonable development is no development. And I think that certainly there is a middle ground of responsible development. I don't think anybody could objectively look at this process over the last year or more and say that the town has not done its due diligence. I think you absolutely have done your due diligence in every single aspect. And we've got, again, a developer who has been willing to work with the town and to make accommodations for people's concerns, as evidenced by the reduction in size of the marina, for example, and some of the other concerns. So when I first moved to Penfield, I remember seeing signs that welcome people to the town of planned progress. I don't know if those signs are still there, but it really struck me when I saw those signs, because I think it made a statement about our community. I think we've seen lots of planning, and it's time to see the progress. So again, I ask you to approve this application, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. Anyone else that signed up?
Alice Sokolow.
Doctor?
Hi, I'm Alice Sokolow, and I'm going to first speak to the hearing number 1, and I want to talk about the project. Our comprehensive plan, on page 82, you talk about the goals and the increase in recreational opportunities associated with local water bodies and the continued increase in public access to Irondequoit Bay. And I'm not so sure if our access isn't infringed upon by the development, and I'll go into that, as well as I don't think it emphasizes the recreational opportunities. I perceive docking as a water-based parking lot, and it's not really recreational-based. Okay. The other thing I have is LaSalle's Landing Development Plan. The goal in 1997, which has followed through in all of the documents, is the primary goal of the plan is to balance the competing interests of landowner development rights with expressed public desire to keep portions of the bayfront open and accessible for continued use and enjoyment by the public. Okay. Now, in the LaSalle's Landing Development District, the purpose of Section 3-90 of the zoning code is to permit moderate-density residential development, as well as serve the residents of and visitors to this district, and the town that generally benefits from any enhancing unique aesthetic and environmental qualities of town's waterfront area. Under that definition, it goes to point 2, to provide sufficient space in appropriate waterfront locations for moderate density residential development, recreational activities, certain commercial activities. And I don't know how you want to, again, define docking, but to me, docking is commercial, it's a parking lot, you pay a fee, it's not a recreational activity. And other water-oriented uses. 4 on the zoning, to provide for a desirable mix of water-oriented commercial uses and active-passive recreational opportunities that take advantage of the unique location and characteristics of the town's waterfront area. Irondequoit Bay is a half a mile by 4 miles long. I don't know the acreage or perception of what Penfield has, but I do know that this is approximately 6 acres just for the docks themselves, the parking lot, the water-based parking lot. Is that your primary goal for the water resource that is your recreation according to your comprehensive plan, your current comprehensive plan? I'm not so sure that this expansion is desirable. And now, as to the comprehensive plan, again, on page 134, it talks about mixed use. Now, we know we're doing developmental plans on mixed use. We haven't approached this area yet, but by definition of what we've included in our comprehensive plan, it states that all public access to these common buildings and commercial properties should be based on the first floor. Well, I have a problem with defining the first floor and what kind of public access and the bathrooms and things like that. Where is the public access and how is it going along with your goal of mixed use? The whole project goes with the goal of mixed use, but that building, is it properly designed? I can't answer that question. Okay, as to the LLD again, its goal is number 13 is to protect waterfront areas against congestion as much as possible by regulating the density of population and intensity of land use and by requiring provisions of open areas for rest and recreation whenever practical. Well, I view it also as your water resource. You want to protect that also. You don't want it congested with just boats. And if you look at the view in the DEIS, which I'll go to later, you want to be able to have an open aesthetic view also, and not just the congestion of the boats all in the front. I remember in the 1980s going to a wedding reception at the Bounty Harbor, and we took a tour around, and there weren't as many boats there at that point in time. And just to see it now, it's drastically changed. And I don't know if you just want to be the storage facility of the whole bay, or do you want to have other functions? And I also have a question on the LD and the setbacks. I don't know if the pool is set back far enough on the building to protect the public access. It's kind of like on the border there. And also when you're dealing with the access on the west side of the marina, while it's already existing, maybe if they're planning to redo the marina, they could take care of the setback that should have existed on the west side. And also the parking lots, I don't think are supposed to be that close to the building, according to both the mixed use and the LLD. But this is just in terms of the technology of the zoning, and I'll go through the DEIS later.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. We have anyone else, Amy, that had signed up?
My name's Paul Lewis. I own Birds Unlimited, directly across from Southpoint Cove Marina expansion. Is there anything we can do about the traffic at this point? I talked with the DOT a couple weeks ago. They didn't really want to do too much, but I'm seeing accidents like I've not seen before in the last 6 years. I've seen near misses almost daily, just about any time I can go outside. Can we put up like flashing lights, yellow lights, just say construction area or construction zone, something to maybe slow people down or make them aware that there's like large vehicles, moving slowly in front of them, pulling in and out?
So, Paul, these accidents, near misses, happening more recently with the construction activity that's on the site?
Absolutely. I mean, with no question. So, I'm sure the Montgomery County Sheriff would probably have records on something like that, I would think. But it's, I've seen a big upswing as far as just people locking up brakes. And I go outside regularly, to help customers and whatever. But it's a huge upswing in near misses, and I don't know. It seems like these vehicles don't even know how large they are when they're pulling stuff in and out. But they take their time, and cars have to like change lanes. I mean, it's a tough bend anyway, but it's worse now. So.
Yeah, and if a truck's pulling out that's got some material on it, it's not going to pull out as quick as a passenger vehicle or anything like that. Okay.
I also like this last lady very much. She has a lot more time to do her homework than I do, but I like a lot of what she said too. So,
Okay. Paul, thank you.
Jess, if I could just ask you to address, you mentioned next week anticipated start time for some of the DOT modifications to Empire Boulevard.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a project schedule? Is it going to be nights and weekends? Is it going to be during the day? Do they plan on?
Well, it's going to be during the day, but at that time the speeds will be greatly reduced because there'll be flagmen and all kinds of traffic mitigation and work safety and that type of thing. And the long-term schedule is that the majority of the improvements will be constructed in about 6 to 8 weeks. The idea is that all the new asphalt will be down, the new turn lane will be striped, and then by the time the DOT says you have to stop construction with the plants, which is about the end of October. So, it's kind of not surprising that there might be some accidents there, but that's because we haven't completed the construction of the mitigation yet. The idea of the mitigation is to account for those accidents, and then I suspect there's also some curiosity going on with the construction right now.
I would just suggest that when interacting with DOT, I remember a couple of years ago when there was considerable work done on the Bay Bridge, DOT flooded the airwaves with project schedules and various information on transportation to let residents know sort of when moving through that area or planned routes. And it just may be a good public service announcement to just let residents know that there is going to be work on that road over the next several weeks, and they might want to just be cognizant of that.
Yeah, I'll certainly discuss that with the apartment developers.
Amy, anyone else that had signed up?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone that did not sign up to speak on this project that would like to address the board? And again, this is on the Marina project. Okay. I would ask Mr. Costello, is there anything that has not been entered into the record from the town standpoint that you believe should be added into the record? Thank you. I would ask the board, any further questions of the developer at this point? Okay, and then I would ask the developer, any additional items that we have not heard as of yet on this project that you believe is pertinent to this particular project?
Not this time, thank you.
Okay. And seeing no other input or feedback, I'll declare this public hearing closed, and I'll ask our clerk to move on to the next public hearing, please.
To address the draft environmental impact statement, DEIS, associated with the development of 176 boat slip expansion and accessory 3750 square foot clubhouse, restaurant, and pool at the Southpoint Marina at 1384 and 1420 Empire Boulevard. The legal notice was published in the Penfield Post on August 21st, 2014, and posted on the town website and the town bulletin board. 6 postcards were mailed, and 3 homeowner associations were notified.
All right, thank you. I would ask Jess if you'd like to address this particular public hearing as an overview of the impact statement.
Yeah, again, because we're dealing with a site plan impact statement, which are, both part of the same project, all the information that was presented as part of the previous hearing, remains valid and is the same. I just wanted to, again, go in the process. This is the public hearing. We are receiving comments from interested and involved agencies, and we will be addressing all those thoroughly. There's nothing specific with the EIS that, we want to address at this time, other than, again, stressing the importance of the alternatives analysis, and also, the fact that we did go through, and, those of you that had a chance to look at it, all of the local plans which apply to the development of the LaSalle district area, the LaSalle plan itself, the Irondequoit Bay Harbor Management Plan. We went through all of their policies and, addressed those as part of that document, because we really wanted to make sure that we did our homework in terms of how does this fit in with not just, necessarily town of Penfield, which, obviously we looked at first, but also where does it find its place, with the Bay, and, that was all thoroughly vetted through that document. One other thing that I did want to mention in terms of the impact statement and how it looks at adjacent properties is that one thing that the developers, Danieli's, have agreed to do is they have actually agreed to reserve boat slips for local developments, including, the apartments right next to us. The reason why that's important and identified in the environmental impact statement is because by reserving slips for other developments, then those developments are less likely to try and put any slips in themselves, especially when looking at the rest of the shoreline in Penfield, where anything west of our site has really shallow water, and they're dealing with the ecology that Dr. Hines pointed out. And then as you get further to the east and up around, to the north around our coastline, the topography gets really severe to the point where, development there of any kind is really not very feasible. So it's important for us to, try to reserve some of those slips for the adjacent developments. And, for example, with the apartment project, by giving some slips to those individuals, they're able to, walk down to the project as opposed to, coming somewhere on the street. That reduces the amount of local traffic and overall impact. That wasn't even accounted for when we did the update to our traffic study, but it is something that we are committed to doing. So again, what we said during the previous hearing, remains valid for the environmental impact statement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think it would be important to, traffic has obviously been a big hitter for this project, for both of these projects, both for the apartments, and I recognize we're talking about the Marina tonight. And you went through in the previous public hearing and highlighted, some of the traffic aspects of things. I think it would be helpful for the record, originally when this project was being proposed, there was a larger number of docks that were being proposed, through a lot of discussion in different meetings. That number has been reduced. And then you also talked about the fact that you took a look at your three, what I'll call peak times. The start of your season, so that's that Memorial Day or before, the 4th of July holiday, and then kind of the end of your season, which is sometime around Labor Day or a bit later. And just if you would just make a few comments, general impact, traffic in that area, how that impacts up towards the Irondequoit and then back towards Penfield, Plank Road, through that area.
Yeah, and the scope of our original study that was conducted, I want to say back in 2012, stretched from 590 up to Plank Road along the whole Empire Boulevard corridor. We actually went and there's an actual Empire Boulevard corridor study that was done years ago. So we went through and we studied that, and then we specifically looked at the existing entrance to Basil's, and then our proposed project entrance, the proposed project entrance to the apartments. At the time, the scope of the development was really just the 358 apartment units. But anytime you do a traffic study, you look to adjacent uses and what could possibly be developed there. At that time, we said, well, it's possible this marina would be expanded, so that could be another 225 boat slips. We took all of those figures, we put them together, and then we project them to say, okay, roughly 50% or 60%, depending on which of the peak hours you look at, are going to head over to 590, which gives you access to the interstate system, whether you're traveling to the south, the east, or west via 490, 390, 590, and so on. And then, a good amount of traffic is going to go up into the Webster area because that's kind of where really the majority of the commercial areas are located. And then we, looked at the distribution of our proposed traffic and, how that would impact, those intersections and our intersection itself. What we found was that, very good levels of service were maintained at those existing intersections, both to the east and to the west of us, including over at Plank Road. But what we did find was that in the front of the proposed project entrance for the apartments. And at that time for Basil's, because of the volume of traffic and because of the number of cars turning in, we would require the installation of the left-hand turn lane. So as part of that study, which was ultimately approved by the DOT, that's how the turn lane was ultimately approved and required as part of the apartment project. So that all happened, is now planned. So when we did our traffic study update, we looked at, those intersections again, not surprisingly, because of the reduction from 225 boat slips down to 176, and because of the reduction in the total number of units at the apartment projects from 358 to 339, but more importantly, 100 less beds because of the way the unit distribution worked out. Those levels of service were actually better than projected in the original study. And if you recall, during the original study, they were still maintained at very good standards based on, the state DOT standards. And, since we were doing an update to a study and, basically the turn lane had already been approved as part of the apartment project, when we did the update as part of the EIS, we were able to point to and say, the required mitigation for this project is actually already planned, scheduled, and now permitted. So, again, the study held and required the mitigation under its original approach. Now, with everything being less dense, worked out better, even yet. And that's even during the peak hours. We, again, look at we look at commuter peak hours, recognizing that there'll be, residents coming by this area and that there's residents in the apartment project. Then we also look at, the peak hour of Basil's restaurant, and we look at peak hours of the Marina, so we try to account for the mixed-use nature of the different uses on the parcel.
Would you comment on drainage due to the development?
Sure, the drainage from the development, all drains basically from Empire Boulevard down to the bay. It does today. There's actually an existing gravel lot there. What we'll be doing is we'll be capturing the majority of that drainage and diverting it to one of the proposed green infrastructure practices, which, as I kind of elaborated on a little bit more at the last hearing, those promote groundwater recharge, which works well in this area because of the sandy soils. So we're able to direct it to those areas and then allow it to infiltrate into the ground, which treats it for water quality. It also takes out the various nutrients which, lead to, growth in the bay itself.
And Jess, could you talk a little bit about water quality? So I think about things like, gasoline, potential gasoline spills, fuel oil spills, those types of things. And what are the plans to manage, manage, clean up, and mitigate those types?
Sure. Under a typical scenario, you might have a bunch of catch basins that are tied into a pipe, and then the pipe discharges, out into the bay or to the creek or to a bigger pipe, which ends up in the, same area. And, that gas or the pollutants in the stormwater could eventually find its way, out into the bay. Now, even the big pond at the bottom of the hill approach, where you just have a big pond, doesn't necessarily do a great job of removing those pollutants out from the stormwater. But with our system and all the water being directed to these rain gardens and also to the organic filters, it actually runs out onto a surface, and then it goes through, a topsoil area with sand mix, and it goes through a whole soil media before it's ultimately collected with an under drain at worst case scenario. Most of the time, it actually infiltrates all the way into the ground, so that those pollutants are first removed via filtration, and second of all, continue down into the groundwater, so there is no direct discharge into the bay, which obviously, improves overall water quality.
Could you talk about, the filling of boats, how that's going to be handled typically?
I'm sorry, what was that?
The filling, the fueling of boats and how that'll be handled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
typically?
thought. Yeah, I don't know. Dan, you want to address that or?
Just address the lease. There's no fuel.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Based on the lease restriction, there's no fueling of the boats. So there's not going to be a fuel station that you might see on some more commercial or transient marinas. It's prohibited in the lease.
So nothing. So it's prohibited in the lease. There's no what I'll call portable unit that runs up and down the various docks to fill watercraft or anything like that.
No, not for fueling.
Okay. Great. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about any erosion concerns along the shoreline with boat activity coming, going, things like that, and what if any impact that has on the shoreline?
Sure. One of the ways that we've looked to address that was by implementing the no-wake zone, because it's, the generation of the wake, which ultimately could lead to the erosion of the shoreline. Fortunately, another reason why this particular site was better in our alternatives analysis than other sites is because there is a good stand of vegetation along the shoreline, which dissipates that, any wave action that does come in there, from people outside the marina. Right now, under today's condition, there's a lot of boats that can achieve, partial to full speed in this area coming into the cove. But with that being regulated, we anticipate that the amount of wave activity will actually be reduced. And again, even if it weren't, there is good existing vegetation along the shoreline there to protect it.
Okay. And then storage of either units, so watercraft, trailers, during the course of that prime time, essentially Memorial Day to Labor Day. What does that look like? At what point do you have to say you need to take that off-site so that we're not cluttering up the available parking
Sure.
and things like that?
The reality of the situation is that it's not like a situation that you might find in a public marina where everybody comes down for the weekend and brings their boats down. By those peak periods, people have already launched their boats, and actually the majority of the boats in this marina are launched somewhere else on the bay because the existing boat launch doesn't allow you to launch a very large boat. So by the time you get to those peak times, there's actually no trailers. People are just showing up in their typical everyday vehicle. But there is an isolated instance, especially earlier in the spring, in April and early May, when people are launching some of the smaller watercraft for the first time. So we have made a designated area outside of the parking lot that was included in our study that we're accounting for that storage.
Okay. And then under the previous public hearing, you talked about the Eagle and the separation of the Eagle. And again, for the record, for this public hearing, how have you handled that?
Yes, we've handled that by, not only reducing the number of docks, but specifically reducing the amount of docks that had previously been located in that 660-foot radius that's projected off of the Eagle's Nest, so that, those were some of our larger boat areas have now been, pulled way back, as a result of our conversations with the DEC and a review of those regulations.
Okay. All right. Board, other questions or comments at this time?
Mr. Supervisor, just a quick question. This may be more directed to Dr. Haynes. I was writing some notes when you were talking about the macrophytes in the cove. Can you just kind of reiterate what you said again? Just want to make sure that my notes are correct and I didn't misunderstand what you were saying.
Certainly. It occurred to me that maybe I should have been talking in this part of the hearing rather than the first part. But yeah, there are no macrophytes in the cove, and there weren't in 2002, whereas macrophytes are dense in other parts of the bay, particularly the north end and where some of the other marinas are on the west side. The importance, again, of the macrophytes is they provide habitats for invertebrates, worms, bugs, beetle larvae, dragonfly larvae, things like that, that small fish would eat. And the small fish would also hide in the weeds so they don't get eaten by larger fish. Without macrophytes, you don't have food supplies, and there's no place for the little guys to hide, and we didn't find them. They weren't there during the reproductive season. We did our sampling in mid-May. All right, and there was very little evidence of reproduction taking place in the cove.
So you made a statement, no biological impact. In your opinion?
In my opinion, on the aquatic, yeah, there's going to be no biological impact, as evidenced by the fact that the existing boat docks with boats had more fish underneath them than the open area where the proposed docks are going.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, before you leave, I have a question. I'm over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. It sounded like it was coming from over there. Pardon me.
It may be. Maybe it's bouncing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you say that, and it's, what about the rest of, we have fishing docks, along in our little park. We have a LaSalle's Park. People fish off there.
Mm-hmm.
There's fishing. But if you were fishing over where these boats are going to go, you're saying maybe it's not a good place to go fishing?
The shoreline habitat is not terrific for fish. You may have heard of Phragmites. It's a tall grass-looking plant. It's also called the common reed. It's the predominant plant along that undeveloped shoreline where the grass is not mowed. and it's a very thin edge. It's not good for amphibians, it's not particularly good for water birds, and it's not particularly good for fish, okay? So we saw fewer fish there than we saw on the more highly developed shoreline at the western edge of the property near the restaurant and near the boat docks.
That's interesting.
So fish are very mobile animals. I used to put radio transmitters on them in my younger days, and I mean, they'll move miles in one day. All right, and so there's a lot of movement in and out of there. I mentioned gizzard shad, which come all the way from Lake Ontario to spawn, and there were all kinds of rotting carcasses of adult gizzard shad that had spawned last year that had, you know, done nasty things under the ice before it melted, and then they were floating up. Their offspring were what were there, and they'll go back out to the lake. And that's mostly what we saw, gizzard shad, a migratory species from the lake in the open water area.
Thank you.
Doctor, I'm over here.
We want to talk to you.
Okay, I'll stand here until, yeah.
With all due respect to the fish, gizzards or not, the DEIS also talks about birds, mammals, amphibians. Can you just speak to that, just for the record, and reptiles, and
Yes,
just what
we were
your
asked-
findings were?
We were asked by DEC to look at all those things.
Correct.
There are standard monitoring protocols. They're called the marsh monitoring protocols. Some of you may participate in those to look for birds and amphibians in the spring and in the fall. We had one of the people on my team is an expert at identifying the calls and the songs, and when he sees these animals. Again, the habitat along the undeveloped part of the shoreline at the project site has the common reed, the Phragmites. It's very poor habitat for amphibians. I think he only heard one frog in that area. He walked around, he looked for reptiles, I think a couple of turtles and maybe a snake were seen. In terms of mammals, there were a number of dusk and dawn surveys, which is the protocol for them. Raccoon tracks and deer tracks and a squirrel, all right, were the things that were seen. So it's just not a high diversity area for terrestrial or semi-aquatic animals.
So were the findings then similar to 2002 with respect to these types of?
Pretty similar. Now, again, we didn't focus on Southpoint Cove because the way we targeted intensive sampling in 2002 was based on presence or absence of aquatic macrophytes. So we did do a lot of study in all around the bay on the terrestrial habitats, including the area that touched down on Southpoint Cove. So people walked the trails, they looked at vegetation, they listened for birds, they looked for these other things. But the Southpoint Cove area is, it's very beautiful to look at, but biologically from an aquatic point of view, there's just not much there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Doctor. I would ask our clerk, has anyone signed up to speak to this public hearing?
Dr. Sokolow.
Thank you. Doctor?
Okay, let me get to the pages. I will try just to focus on a few important areas and not every detail that I have written down.
Ma'am, just for the record, name and address, please.
Dr. Alice Sokolow, 34 Avamore Way, Penfield, New York. Okay. Let's get to, okay. Again, in section 1.3, the pool and the clubhouse, on the second floor, you will have your year-round restaurant, and that is against your comprehensive plan mixed use and on page 134. Okay, on page 14, section 2.1, the hours of operation of the Marina and Harbor Master. are from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. I would like to know, when do the boats usually take off? Don't they, I mean, it depends on your purpose. If you're going fishing, I think it'd be earlier than 10 a.m. And how does that harbor master monitor the refueling or not refueling that's not supposed to occur there because of the hours that the harbor master is there? Okay, the dock extension is probably against the LD, the LaSalle's Landing, because it's over 700-foot dock, and I don't know how you rationalize that. The docks are proposed to be left in place during the winter. Well, not all docks, especially the examples they gave, leave the docks there over the winter. A lot of them are removed. Okay, as to point 4, page 17, dredging. Now, this is the biggie. The Irondequoit Bay Harbor Management Plan states that that whole bay has to be dredged on a regular basis. There's no way around it. And the LaSalle's Landing Development Plan also states the same. It goes through that there was dredging in 1988, in 2001, and the Southpoint Marina did dredging in 2009. And on their advertising for the marina, it says that the dredging made the depth of the area to 9 feet. Now, that has other implications, because if it was dredged so many times over so many years, that may explain some of Dr. Haynes' results. I can't say that, he would know that. But to say that this area won't have dredging, I really don't think that they can say that with confidence because of the repeated history of dredging, whether they are going to, whether the sand's going to fill in or, well, let's step one back. Dr. Haynes stated that the depth of the water was 6 foot. Well, they dredged in 2009 to 9 feet. So what is already occurring? I can't tell you that one either. So they have not addressed the dredging. They are not allowed to dredge. The marina can't be expanded if there's dredging, and all of your regulations and policies in Penfield direct you to that same statement over and over and over again. Okay, and here is the document that states why docks at Southpoint Marina are better. The entire marina was dredged to 9 feet deep in 2009. They also should have addressed maintenance dredging because all the papers, the Irondequoit Bay Harbor Management Plan, the update in 2003, and everywhere states that it has to be repeatedly maintained. And I would also like to see a plan, if they're not going to dredge, how they're going to direct the boats around. Because if the west side is closed off because they're not going to dredge anymore and it's filling in, then how are they going to get the boats out? Okay, for the facility, parts of the facility are going to be open 24 hours, and they don't tell you what the public access is going to be in terms of the hours, in terms of the public bathrooms, things like that. Okay. Okay, it states on page 21, section 2, top of the page, under the current version of the Irondequoit Bay Harbor Management Plan, the Southpoint Marina is in a resource protection area. That means they shouldn't be developing. An updated version of the IBHMP proposes a designated change on this site to a harbor area. But that, I looked at the DOS, the New York State DOS, and it is not there yet. So I can't explain that one either. And aquatic vegetation, I had that question in terms of the depth. If the depth that was measured by Dr. Haynes was 6 foot and it was dredged to 9 feet, what is already going on from 2009 to 2014? Okay, water surface navigation. The existing docks, this is on page 26, C. The existing marina and the docks support a large variety of motor boat sizes ranging from 12 feet to 31 foot. The current marina occupies 3.1 acres of open water. Okay, the dock they're proposing is twice that, so that's 6.4 acres. And if you note in most of the documents at 2.9, it's just counting the dock and not the water surface. So I need clarity as to water surface or physical dock. Let me see. In terms of land use and zoning, that's page 31. Again, it's the comprehensive plan, the mixed use, and the discrepancies thereof. I'm trying to go very quickly because we dealt, the bald eagle. In terms of the eagle, I checked with the DEC and Southpoint Cove Apartments. While they filed their takings for the eagle, they have not completed it correctly, and so therefore, there is currently no official paid takings permit. And therefore, since we can't associate whether they're together or apart as different entities, whether there's going to be more than one takings, and whether this marina and addition is going to be included under the original takings, that's not complete. Okay, on page 38, top line, a marina is considered incompatible use according to 6 New York CRR 663.4 and is expected to result in adverse impacts to a Class 1 wetland. And then it says, contrary to that statement, this project is unique. Well, it's incompatible use. On page 39, I go through dredging again, but we don't have to go through that again. Then on page 42, again, it's the usage of open water surface versus docking. And then they started to evaluate the different plans. Well, the comprehensive plan wasn't brought up at all. LaSalle's landing was, but the details that I gave in terms of the compliance of the zoning and non-compliance of the zoning was not mentioned. And then again, it says on page 46 at the top, contrary to the 1997 study, the expansion of Southpoint Marina will distribute and dilute boat traffic along the bay as opposed to expand it. But the dockage is all going to be occurring in Penfield. You've just shifted it, and that, according to the Bay Harbor Agreement, was supposed to be spread out and not concentrated in one area, and that is against your comprehensive plan. Okay, then on number 7 of page 46, adjacent waste sites. Now, the contaminated spill site was on 1440 Empire Boulevard. That 1440 Empire Boulevard was split into 2 pieces. One became a Brownsfield, the other one just had a cleanup of spill. And I have not gotten clarification from DEC, because they can't really, because it was treated as a spill, clarify if it is safe for the present 1420, which was the 1440, part of the 1440, which was the initial site of the contamination for the whole area, because it was a dump, whether that is safe. And it was a change in addresses, and that's why I brought it up last time, and that has not been addressed. I might have to skip to the end. Okay, in terms of a hard look, I don't think their description of the growth-induced impacts, they did economic development based on their own economic development, not on the town's growth and economic impact. In terms of irreversible and irretrievable commitment to resources, again, the docks. The docks are nothing but parking lots in the water. And so you have to realistically think of how you want to multi-purpose that area and how much surface area that Penfield has, because it's a one-time, can't go back. What percentage of that do you want handled in different ways? And the rest of the details, I'll do it another time. Thank you.
Dr. Alice, I know as of this morning, we had not received any comments or input from you directly. Is your intent, in addition to what we've heard this evening, also submit materials regarding the impact statement as well?
And my understanding is we have until the 19th.
That is correct. That is correct. Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has signed up to speak to the board?
No.
Is there anyone that did not sign up that would like to address this particular matter? This is the DEIS for the Marina. Okay. Board, any additional comments for the applicant or representatives of the applicant at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. I would ask Mr. Costello, anything that you believe from a town standpoint that should be entered into the record that has not?
Mr. LaFountain, I want to remind the board about it.
Thank you.
I've been forgetting to do this for 34 years now.
Thank you.
Just want to remind the board and the audience that, as you just mentioned, that the town of Penfield, particularly the planning department, is accepting comments on the DEIS until the 19th of September at 5 p.m. You have the ability to do it through the website. It is on the website at this point in time. You can review it there. You can send emails to us through planning@penfield.org. You can send faxes, and you can send it through the U.S. mail. And we'll accept it by hand as well. So there's plenty of opportunity. If you need additional copies of the EIS, I do have them in my office, and I'm willing to share them with anybody who needs them.
Other copies are available at library?
There is one at the library, but certainly I have the ability to sit down with you if you'd like to do that and go through the EIS with you if you need to do that.
340-8642.
You've memorized it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And then I would ask the applicant, is there anything that you would like to add to the record that you have not added already that you believe is pertinent to this particular application?
Sure, I just want to clarify, a couple of things. It was stated that the water depth was noted to be 9 feet, but in our application it was only at 6 feet. There is some natural fluctuation in the water depth. It's not as a result of, any siltation based on the surveys that were done as part of that last dredging application to what there is today. There actually has been no additional sedimentation in our project area, so I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to make another clarification that the project as it currently stands, in order to construct this project successfully, does not require dredging currently, while most other areas would. We did not say that it wouldn't require maintenance dredging at some point in the future, just like most areas in the bay ultimately do. If at such time that does become required, that would be a whole separate permit process through the DEC. The point we were just making, it's not required in order for us to construct the dock today.
All right, seeing no further input, then I'll declare this public hearing closed. For this hearing, as well as the previous hearing, the next opportunity for the board to have any discussion will be next Wednesday at the earliest at the work session. I would suggest that the applicants keep track of the agenda. The agendas are typically published and they're available online after 12 p.m. on Friday. And if the board takes this up, it certainly will be on the agenda at that time. Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue to move on to our agenda. I note that we have some folks here that probably want to talk about a specific matter, maybe Baker Commodities. So I will take out of order the public participation and the communications, and I will call for public participation at this time. And would ask our clerk, do we have anyone that signed up to speak on any matter at this point before the board?
Steve Healy. Steve Healy.
Let's not fight over it, guys.
Oh, which one? Bob Reed.
Good evening, Bob.
Good evening, Tony. How are you?
I'm well.
Bob Reed, 275 Parkview Drive. Tony, I did get the flurry of releases that came out today from the DEC and the letters that you cited. I believe that you sent one to the DEC and one to the DOH.
That is correct.
I don't know if I fully absorbed all of that at the last minute. But before we get to that, I wanted to just briefly go over and ask you for, about individual items of the petition that we brought to you a month and a half ago, petition signed by 134 residents, brought to you out of frustration over years of looking for support and help with the matter of odors from the Baker Commodities rendering plant, which have been recurring and increasing since 2005. And I would say that as of right now, we have about 165 complaints for this year, which already more than doubles what we had last year. And last year doubled what we had the year before. So you can kind of see the trajectory is not getting better. And even in the last 2 weeks, things have, although we haven't had severely hot weather, we have had maybe about 22 odor complaints. And almost none of those are mine because I was up in your hometown area for 2 weeks, so I wasn't contributing to that until I think this morning when it was very strong in the neighborhood. So the petition had 7 items. So I want to ask, have you determined that you will conduct a survey of the areas that surround the plant, not just our neighborhood, to determine the real size of the problem?
You know, Bob, one of the things that we have talked about in the past is that, you know, we have had ongoing conversations with our friends from Brighton, and no items have been reported. This board recognizes that there has been an odor problem, and we're looking to address that. The board, at least at this time, did not see a need to go out. If we're recognizing there is a problem, we're trying to address that problem, and we have not heard anything specifically from adjacent communities. Then at this point, we're just going to continue to move forward with there is a problem, and we need to address it, and continue to work with DEC, the Health Department, Baker Commodities, you know, on rectifying the problem.
Okay, I think it would be very good to know the size of the problem and how many people are being affected. And we should go ahead with that. Number 2, conduct testing of the air in the survey area over a 6-month period that includes a full summer to determine the composition of emissions, their frequency by date, day, and time, their potential harm to residents within the survey area. Share the results with the residents no later than December 31st, 2014. Clock is running out on that one because it took us longer to mount this petition than we thought and get the signatures. But I suspect that your letter to the DOH, you figure, would cover this.
Yeah, I mean, what we heard or what we learned from the DEC is that they did not believe they had anyone on their staff that was qualified to address that particular item. That's what prompted me to then go back to, even though I've had some discussions with Department of Health, I wanted to get to Dr. Kennedy and have Dr. Kennedy not only see the letter from DEC, but also have Dr. Kennedy, you know, follow up on what was done by the Health Department in the past under Dr. Doniger, as well as what, if any, additional work that they'd be looking to do themselves or in conjunction with the New York State Department of Health.
Okay, we do need to see more on that.
Right, I would agree with that.
My response to that would be, my initial reaction was, okay, if you're requesting a study over the course of an entire summer, that can't start till next summer.
Right.
So I thought, why wait? My thought was, certainly, I mean, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert in this area, but I'm not saying that I dismiss that request, but in terms of the timeliness, and I understand getting together a petition takes some time, I certainly thought, well, why would we ask for that to happen? Because that just stalls the process of rectifying this problem.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
That would stall the process of rectifying this problem.
Would stall the process, okay. Yeah, it might, but we should know what's coming out of that plant, one way or another, whether it's a summer or a fall or a winter or next summer. But we should know what's coming out of that plant, what's coming into our neighborhood, and what's essentially coming into our lungs, you know.
And I think that's what that letter that I had asked for
Okay.
Dr. Kennedy
Okay.
was, what is the impact, one, to the neighborhood, and two, to the general public or the health of general public.
Okay, we'll have to see what they come up with. Number 3, and this kind of touches on, I think, some of what we learned today. Engage a thoroughly qualified independent consultant to analyze Baker Commodities operations, who shall prepare a report on the causes and remedies of the odors. Such report no later than December 31st, 2014. And again, this was a date that when we anticipated having this done early in the spring, and we didn't bring this to you until July. Now, you released today a letter from the DEC that says they are going to require Baker to retain an engineer to essentially perform this function. Okay. I think probably you remember, Tony, in 2011 when we started the stakeholder meetings, we discussed the need, something I've been talking about to the board for many years, for an independent analysis of odor control. And Mr. Schmieder of the plant said that he didn't think that there was anyone except their own staff, contractors and subcontractors who thoroughly understood it and could perform an evaluation like that. And I took serious issue with that. I think if you've been failing for, well, at that point, 6 or 7 years to solve the problem, you can no longer say that you're the only one who can solve the problem or understand the problem. And that reservation, I think, applies to the DEC asking Baker to essentially find their own consultant and pay them and get an opinion. I don't think that can be neutral. I don't think it can be independent if Baker is in charge of that process. I think that needs to come from the town. I'm quite worried that they may go to SCP Control in Minneapolis, the Peterson company, Carl Peterson, and now I think his son, Eric Peterson. They've worked for Baker many, many times in other locations and at least twice here over the years. And they almost qualify as an in-house permanent consultant for Baker. We definitely don't want to see them do it. We need to get somebody, we need to get a fresh look from people who haven't been involved and from experts that really can't be controlled by Baker Commodities. So that's my concern. And we find out today that this is going to be required of Baker, and one of our neighbors inquired of Bill Schmieder of Baker's if they've got anyone in mind yet, and he said in an email today, I believe, that they already have retained an independent consultant to do this job. That's awful quick action. We just found out about it today. They already have someone lined up. He didn't give a name. I think maybe I would hope that you would stand up and say, wait, no, this isn't the way to go about it. Baker can't be in charge of this process if it's going to be independent.
What we also don't know is what discussions DEC and Baker had prior to the letter coming out either.
Right.
So
yeah.
I saw Fred's note to Bill and Bill's response back. But now I know as much as you know about, you know, who or what that is at this point.
Enact a series of steeply progressive fines for releasing foul odors or for having excessive materials on site that are not subject to odor abatement. I think I'm correct in saying that over the course of the years, the 28 years, that this has been a problem at various times, sometimes an extraordinary problem like in 1996. I don't think Baker's ever been fined or suffered any financial consequences other than fixing the problem. And it just doesn't seem right to anybody that I talk to about it, you know. There needs to be accountability. They need to be held responsible in a financial way if they don't do due diligence in controlling these odors. And remember, they controlled them almost flawlessly for 8 years. You know, we had no odor reports for 8 years. I think the plant, the manager of the plant thinks that we have it in for him. We don't really want to be here. We don't really want to be doing this, you know. Not that we haven't all had a wonderful civics lesson tonight and seeing the board do very due diligence with the Daniele project. And the last time I was here, you went over the Mark's Pizzeria project very, very carefully with great diligence. And I thought, boy, I wish they were given that kind of attention to the Baker Commodities issue over the years. But you were defending the people of Penfield in those hearings and making sure that it's done right and there's adequate oversight. And I commend you for that. I can't commend you for the 7 or 8 years that you've left us hanging and haven't taken any action on this problem, hoping things are changing. But Baker needs to be held responsible when they screw up badly. You know, 1996, you saw the letter from the Department of Health. Over 300,000 pounds of decaying animal carcasses and fats, greases, and oils over the course of several weeks on their site down there, sitting in trucks in the July sun. And it was a hot, hot summer. Now, they fixed the problem over a period of weeks. And for the next 8 years, things were perfect. But no consequences, you know, no consequences, no financial consequences. I think that's wrong. And that's why number 4 is so important. And I take it that you haven't looked into this or taken any action on that yet.
We have taken no action at this time, Bob.
Please talk about it. Please do something with it.
Mr. Reed, if
Yes,
I
sir.
can, just to point out, I just want to make sure we're all clear. In addition to the potential of fines for discrepancies, the actual DEC permit with Baker Commodities on item number 4.1 specifically mentions the DEC having the authority. The department reserves the right to modify, suspend, or revoke this permit. So in addition to potential fines, the State Department of Environmental Conservation in this permit does have the ability to go to the ultimate extreme should they choose to do that.
Yes.
So that's just in addition to potential fines.
Yes. I think there needs to be a town response. And more than your polite request occasionally to the plant manager, Tony, after there's an odor complaint, you send him a very polite question. Is there anything that explains the odors that the residents were getting? And whatever Mr. Schmieder says seems to be, you know, Hakuna Matata, to use the famous expression. There doesn't seem to be any follow-up. Whether he says we had a problem and we fixed it, or we can't find a problem, there's no follow-up, there's no consequence. So there needs to be, that needs to be happening on a local level. The DEC is not there. We're here. This is our town. I would also say regarding that permit, if I read Mr. D'Amato's letter correctly, he says that they find that the plant is in compliance with this permit. Is that what you read, Tony? That's what I read. I wonder, how did they test the emissions? Why didn't we hear about this? What are the numbers? You know, we want to be able to see this information and compare it. And also, how can they be in compliance with their permit? I want to read you maybe the most important sentence or two from the permit, from my point of view. No person shall cause or allow emissions of air contaminants to the outdoor atmosphere of such quantity, characteristic, or duration which unreasonably interfere with the comfortable enjoyment of life and property. How can they be in compliance with 160 complaints? And people telling us that they're awakened from their sleep on occasion. This doesn't happen every day, thank God, but awakened from their sleep, cancel dinners on their decks, leave the deck with a cup of coffee in the morning to go inside, not take your infant daughter out in the stroller, and on the rare occasion when in the afternoon we have the odors, because the odors are so foul. So I don't know how Mr. D'Amato comes up with the determination that they are in compliance with their permit.
I would tend to agree with you. I mean, that's, that was the second letter that I sent to Mr. D'Amato to say,
About
you
the
know, I
meeting
think we
where we
need to
can-
have a public information meeting so
Yeah.
that we have the opportunity to understand, you know, what your findings were, your comments, and, you know, how it is consistent with the permit.
Yes.
And Bob, I would like to just add, not only do I agree with you on that, but we received the letter today or yesterday afternoon, but it was dated August 6th. So our letter was submitted to DEC on July 24th. So you're looking at less than a 2-week turnaround that without any information or supporting data, DEC ruled that they're in compliance. I find that hard to believe myself, at least without having any supportive data analysis or any notification that anyone from DEC, staff, experts, whatever it may be, has been down there at Baker or in your neighborhood conducting studies. So again, as Supervisor LaFountain just mentioned, that's part of the next step, is to ask DEC to come to a meeting, stakeholders, town board, residents, and try to obtain that information and find out what they're basing their compliance measures on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excuse me. Make public the February 10, 1989 letter between Mr. Dorr and Mr. Horwitz. We already have that letter, but the final stipulation of discontinuance and order of consolidation referenced in Mr. Dorr's letter, the confidentiality agreement, confidentiality order referenced in Mr. Dorr's letter, and Mr. Reedy's letter referenced in Mr. Dorr's letter. This is a little bit arcane and obscure for a lot of people, but essentially it refers to the closing of the suit in 1989 that the town, and I guess the state finally joined against Baker Commodities. The suit was discontinued. And at the discontinuance, there was a confidentiality agreement. We'd like to see what's in that. We'd like to know not the specific information in the documents that had to be returned to Baker Commodities, but what documents they were, what information was returned. And I take it that we're not going to get that tonight.
You're not going to get that tonight.
Number 6, establish through examination of intake and production records that Baker's size and scope, limited in its non-conforming use permit to levels existing when the plant was purchased, has not expanded. We're quite sure that it has expanded, and it's probably in violation of its non-conforming use permit. That can be remedied, and the neighborhood would support that change if it was done right. Allow them to legally expand, but put severe accountability measures in to make sure that that expansion doesn't result in expanded odors for us. And there's a very good likelihood that their expansion is a large part of why we're experiencing so many odors. As you know, they bought and closed the other rendering plants in New York State. And they apparently are shipping from east and west of us great distances these materials to be reprocessed. That perhaps makes great sense. But they have to be, if they're going to do that, it has to be done legally. And it has to be done in a way so that the neighbors don't bear the brunt of that expanded operation. Any likelihood that that's going to happen?
We haven't discussed that, Bob.
It's been a month and a half. Excuse me. Promptly and aggressively take other steps as needed to compel Baker Commodities to return to the level of odor control benchmarked in the period 1997 to 2005, when there were 0 odor complaints. Now, I don't believe there were 0 odors, but in fact, We had none to report. And for at least the first 3 years of that period, we were ready to jump on them with both feet at the first sign of anything. 97, 98, 99, those years right after 96, which were so, that summer was so horrific, there was nothing to report. We know that the job can be done. We're not sure that they have the will to do it, or whether it's a matter of maximizing their profits by scaling back somewhat their odor control. But they need to be compelled to do the job right. You asked us to be patient, Tony, in an email that you sent to me just before I went on vacation. We have to wait for the DEC's report. I guess we didn't have it at that point. But I want to remind you that where you live, you don't have to breathe this stuff, okay? It doesn't blow in through your windows and into your lungs. We'd like to see a little more aggressiveness on your part, and maybe we're seeing some of that. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to amount to anything or not. We want the odors to go away. We don't want to have to go through this process again when and if they come back. It shouldn't take us all these years for a situation like this, for a cyclical problem with this plant, for us to get your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, I'm just going to reference the confidentiality agreement.
Yes.
In 1989, I was 20 years old. I did not take a seat on this board until 2009. Bob, I'm dealing with 2014. My attention is focused on the problems in your neighborhood in 2014. I'm also an attorney, and I know a lot about confidentiality agreements. I would never advise a client to violate a confidentiality agreement. That includes disclosing it. And I certainly don't think that our counsel here would advise the town of Penfield to violate a confidentiality agreement from when I was 20 years old that has sanctions that can be imposed upon the violator. That would just be reckless. So that's my comment on the confidentiality agreement from 1989, and I'm not going to discuss it anymore.
Okay. Is it legal for a town to have a confidentiality
Absolutely.
agreement
It
with
was
a company?
they were a party to the litigation. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
New York State can as well. The United States of America can as well. You can be a party to a confidentiality agreement, and there can be severe sanctions. And there are severe sanctions. I would never advise a client to violate a confidentiality agreement.
Thank you.
Mr. Healy.
Tony, board members.
Right.
First, thank you for sharing the DEC letters. Thank you for the letter to the DOH. And thank you for requesting the public hearing with all the stakeholders. Those are all good forward motions, right? I'm a little disappointed in the letter from the DEC. Let me explain a little bit about why, okay? We touched on that a little bit earlier with what Bob said, and it's in the first point that he raises. And he says, staff advises that Baker is compliant with its air state facility permit. While that's wildly reassuring, it's also inadequate, as we just talked about a little while ago. What I think we'd all like to see is what measures compliance and what is the data that results from that and how were they in the right range. So going forward, I hope we see that.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
I think we all do.
I think we
all agree
all
on
do.
Yeah, Steve, just real quickly, one of my disappointments with this letter is it was so generically written. There were no data points. There was no process of how they went about it. There was no objective analysis identified in it. It was just a very generic paragraph. And that was very disappointing to me as a town board member.
Yeah.
So I concur with you and a lot of the speakers before us tonight.
And that's the essence of my problem with it, Andy.
Yeah.
It's too generic. I mean, we've heard a lot of hand waving from the DEC over the past 9 years. We don't need more. We need specifics.
Right.
Okay, so let me refer to the second page. And look to the second paragraph there, and it says, staff is confident that the thermal oxidizer is effective at controlling the high-intensity odors. Again, wildly reassuring, but wholly inadequate. Why are they confident? What makes them confident? How have they measured anything to be confident in that? You know, so I think we all agree that this is an inadequate response. We need metrics, we need data, we need some proof that they actually are.
I would have expected some type of a scale or matrix that showed what the operating temperatures were, or what that range was during the time that they were processing for specific days, weeks, whatever, so that you had that. I mean, that was part of the discussion when we were holding our stakeholders meeting, and that we asked to have those records, specifically dated, and to check those and to make sure that they were within spec, during the course of operations. So none of that came out in the letter itself.
So hopefully that will come forth
right
now. To our knowledge, Baker continues to run it as appropriate. Let's define appropriate for the TOs. We've been debating that forever. Again, more data. Let's have some data here, as you just pointed out, Tony. Define appropriate. Then 3, if the oxidizer malfunctions, odors can certainly occur. The staff continues to attempt to determine why these malfunctions occur and how frequently. So that last sentence implies that the TOs are malfunctioning, right? And if, in fact, they are malfunctioning, that could be the smoking gun that we're concerned about, and that I continually point out. And if they are malfunctioning, that invalidates the first sentence, that staff is confident that the thermal oxidizer are effective at controlling high-intensity odors. It's like an infinite loop of negation, right? It doesn't make sense. And this is the regional director of the DEC? That's disappointing. So I think we're all on the kind of same page right there with that, right?
Yep, I would agree.
So I would say, these things go back to the simple questions we've postulated before. There were many years of odor-free environment for us. Then in 2005, something changed. What changed? We need to define that somehow, some way, and this third party needs to dig into that in earnest. And if they don't, they're inadequate. I'm hoping they will. And I hope they'll dig deep with the thermal oxidizers and provide some of the data that you just talked about, Tony. They really need to. My hope is that we can cut to the chase here and get this done. One of the ways to do it is are the TOs run now the way they used to be? Are there verifiable records? Can we do a comparison? If I was the third party going in there, that's the first thing I'd ask for is what are the records then and now? Do a comparison and see. And then are those records verifiable? I don't know. Depends. Depends how the plant is run and how they certify date and times and stuff like that. And do they timestamp stuff? I don't know. But if I was a third party, I'd be asking. The other thing is, in some of these communications, they've been talking about, running these scrubbers and getting these scrubbers up to speed and lined out and so forth. And it certainly seems to imply that they're converting to the scrubbers to use the TOs less and to cut their costs. That's the implication. So the implication through some of these documents is that they are, in fact, running the TOs less and converting to the scrubbers, and they're far less reliable. So that, again, points to that smoking gun. So the third party really needs to dig into these pieces of this puzzle because the puzzle may be fairly simple. And it doesn't take a year to line out a scrubber. Right. It does not. Something's very wrong with that. And then in the paper this weekend, where the Baker spokesman is saying that my postulate about something having changed with the TOs is not based in fact. If that's the case, prove it. Pretty simple. Prove it. Don't just say it's not based in fact. That's just more meaningless hand-waving that we don't need to hear any more of. Let's see some facts. I think we all want that. And then, who is this third party? You don't know yet, right?
I know as much as what I saw from Fred. I don't see Fred anymore, but what I saw in Fred's note and Bill's response. So I know as much as you know or the neighborhood knows about that.
So that will be disclosed, though, right?
Yeah, I would expect to do that. I included in my note that I'm going down with an inspection with DEC this Friday.
Yeah.
So that'll be one of the questions that I'm going to ask is to find out, who that person is, or what the company is, when do they plan on starting, who's going to be working with them. I mean, I would fully expect and ask for the DEC to be on site with them the whole time that they're on site.
Yeah.
I think that that's just key is the permitting agency is to be sitting right by that person, getting the same information
Yep.
that they're asking for. So if they're asking for, that, the records, current, past, what is that operating minimum? Are you using the scrubbers more today and TO less today?
Yeah.
I mean, all those types of things. And I would want to be getting that same information as the DEC representative as that's coming to this third-party engineer, so that I have mirror copies of what they have. I mean, that's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
mean, that's what I'll be encouraging DEC on Friday, is to say, if that person's going to be on site for 2 days, 10 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, then DEC should be on site for that same period of time.
Yeah, it's going to be a full-bore effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really does. So that should be public knowledge who that third party is, right?
As soon as I hear, no different than
Yeah.
what I said when I got the information from DEC that I would share it with the neighborhood distribution, I'll share that as well.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Metzler, you were talking before about the special powers in New York State, and you were going to find out a little bit more about that, municipalities' ability to regulate these rendering.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think there's been some misinformation or maybe some embellishment as to what the powers of the town of Penfield are right now. What town law, I believe it's 130 subdivision 14, what that does is, it's basically called home rule. Subdivision 140 of the town law. Now, it's not the Penfield town law, it's the New York State town law. So that's a New York State law. There is not a Penfield law right now that enables us to regulate the rendering facility. That's been a misperception. I have had neighbors of yours ask me about that, and I've given them clarification, but I'm glad you brought that up. What home rule does is basically it's a constitutional requirement of every state that has a state constitution to enable local municipalities to legislate things. If you take a look at this probably 40-page law, there's 2 lines that mention a rendering plan. Basically, home rule is a catch-all where the state has to say, okay, town, city, village, you can regulate dance halls, you can regulate pets, you can regulate livestock, you can regulate, I could go on and on, peace, good order, malicious mischief, animals, amusements. It's a catch-all that's required constitutionally.
Yeah.
So what would have to happen, like any enacting of a new area of our code, would be we would have to go through the process. First, decide that that's something that we would like to do, go through the process of enacting a new town code section that in some way regulates a rendering facility. That's a huge task.
Yeah.
You know, in your expertise. Those of us sitting up here, I don't think you probably would want us to do that, to come up with a regulation such as that during a regular public hearing process that would have some teeth to it. My experience also, I mentioned this in talking to some of my fellow board members, is that I will say also, too, that under Supervisor LaFountain's leadership right now, the research I've done regarding precedent with respect to the DEC and the Attorney General's office coming in regarding noxious odors around the state recently, Supervisor LaFountain is following the protocol that enabled those problems to be solved in other municipalities. I'm confident in that. And I'm watching what the DEC is doing, and I can see what they're doing is following the protocol that they did follow in other instances as well. That's reassuring in that regard. What also happens, though, when you have multiple levels of municipalities who are able to either enforce, regulate, or approve certain types of uses, is you will have one municipality say, oh, well, I'm the state of New York, but you know what? The town of Penfield has a law. Let's let them deal with it. versus us saying, we don't have the enforcement. You're the permitting agency. New York State regulates this. That's who needs to be the enforcing authority here. So you do have to have, I think, some strategy involved when you decide to invoke home rule. If you see that there is another municipality or another agency that is better equipped to enforce the regulations.
It might be worthwhile to write that up and communicate one of your communications with the neighborhood, so that's clear. The more of these things we get out of the way, the better. One thing I did want to just point out, though, is Bob did get a control chart. Actually, it was a temperature chart of the TOs. And it's one of these circular charts that shows the temperature of the TO, and there's a pen that goes across it in a circle, and it records the temperature of the TO. And we saw a very consistent operation until about 2 o'clock. And then after that, it kept dropping precipitously, probably about 15 times. And then that actually lined up with something else that we'd gotten communicated to us before with the other DEC note that I think we mistook for the DEC response, with that earlier one from Tom Marriott, where they were trying to do some cost control by running the TO less. And those intermittent stops were drops in temperature to try to control costs, is what it sounded like. So all I'm pointing out with that is there's inconsistency here relative to the story of the TOs from multiple parties here in these letters. So we need to pay close attention. That's all. So thank you, and appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging in there. Anyone else that had signed up? No. Is there anyone that has not signed up but would like to address the board on this or any other matter? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, and that will be back to communications and announcements. And I would recognize our town clerk to start off.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Our mobile DMV that's held on Tuesdays in the Town Hall Auditorium from 10 to 3:30 p.m. will be canceled next Tuesday, September 9th, due to the primary elections. The elections will run from noon till 9, and our mobile DMV will resume the following Tuesday on September 16th. Our 2014-2015 Penfield and Webster School District tax bills have been mailed out. If you do not receive your bill by this Friday, September 5th, or have a question about the bill, please contact our tax department, 340-8626. Tax bills can also be printed off the Monroe County website at monroecounty.gov. And lastly, the county clerk's office, along with myself and town council members Linda Cole and Rob Quinn, will host our next passport night on Tuesday, September 23rd from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. in our auditorium. The event will be will be extremely popular, as it always has been. And anyone interested in getting a passport or updating one that has expired may come in that evening. Signing up in advance is encouraged but not required. And for more details, please contact me at 340-8629. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Good evening, everyone. Save the date for the town's annual Tasting the Blues event to be held Saturday, September 13th from noon to 4 p.m. Come to the amphitheater behind the town hall for cruise car parking, food concessions, Dundee samples, and chili judging. Blues music will be provided on the Kiwanis stage by Steve Grills and the Roadmasters, with special guest Joe Beard. If you have a great chili recipe that you would like to enter into the contest, entry registration will begin on Tuesday, September 2nd. For more details, please visit penfieldrec.org. Second, recently, Councilwoman Metzler and I had the opportunity to conduct some mobile office hours in the community. We were in the neighborhoods off Watson Road, and it was an opportunity for Paula and myself to meet with residents on their streets, just discuss town matters, ask them if they have any questions or if they have any concerns or constructive criticism for us as elected representatives. I thought it went well. It was a beautiful night. Everyone was home and very pleased that we were out and about, and if you would like to mention anything, you can go ahead. Well, I have one more thing. It's not a secret, but it is a school night, and I'm very pleased about that. Tomorrow, my daughter May will be entering first grade and getting on the bus for the first time, so I'm pretty excited, and we'll be out early taking pictures. But please, just remember, since school is back in session, take a moment to remind yourselves, please use caution and care and follow the laws when driving in school zones. It's going to be a very busy, hectic morning tomorrow here around Penfield, especially the southern half with Penfield Central Schools beginning. So please be mindful of kids and buses out on the roads. Thank you very much.
Great. Mrs. Mesa.
I'll just quickly echo Councilman Quinn. We did have a delightful evening off of Watson Road the other evening, and it's been fun to start these mobile office hours and talk to residents right at their homes about what interests them, what they like, what they don't like. And we've certainly had a nice night to do that, so I appreciate being asked to come along on that. I have a couple of announcements tonight. On Saturday, September 27th, Penfield Recreation and the Penfield History Room will hold a historic Penfield Road Rally, which is a fundraiser for the DEER program, Daytime Education at Recreation. A road rally is a scavenger hunt by car where teams compete against each other, finding clues and solving riddles to lead them from location to location. Along the way, you stop to enjoy a roadside picnic and rally around Penfield as you explore some of the town's past. Enjoy a fall ride around the countryside as you solve, search, and find all the secret locations on the route. A delicious lunch will be presented at one of the stops for you to take with you so you can picnic at your leisure. The starting location is the Penfield Community Center. Teams will leave with direction packs promptly at 11:15 a.m. Teams will not be timed, but will be awarded points for each completed task in the allotted time frame. Team entry fee is $30 per team, 2 to 3 players who must be in the same car. And to register or for more information, visit penfieldrec.org. Also, the town will be hosting a one-day recycling event on Saturday, October 4th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Penfield residents may recycle metals, destroy confidential documents, and dispose of residential brush at the Public Work Complex, 1607 Jackson Road. Clothing donations can also be made to the on-site St. Pauli textile shed near the sewer building. Electronics will not be collected at this event. The week prior, though, Saturday, September 27th, the Penfield Parrington Kiwanis Club will be hosting an electronics recycling event to benefit the Golisano Children's Hospital. This event will be from 9 a.m. to noon, and it will also be at our town's DPW complex on Jackson Road. For more information on these recycling events, please visit penfield.org. And that's all I have this evening.
Great, thank you very much. I have one item that I'll mention. Mark your calendars for a new environmental discussion series sponsored by the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee. This is going to be a free series that will cover recycling in Monroe County and creative reuse ideas, the electric car, rain gardens, stormwater management, practical steps to lower carbon living, butterfly gardens, wild habitats, and solar PV systems. Check out page 19 of the current PenRec brochure, or log on at www.penfieldrec.org for more information and details. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Supervisor. Residents are encouraged to gather with Penfield Town Historian Kathy Knauer and the Penfield Trails Committee to find out much more about the life and accomplishments of town founder Daniel Penfield. This hike will take place at Channing Philbrook Park on Saturday, September 13th at 9 a.m. Please meet at the pavilion. We ask participants to please register ahead of time so they know who will be showing at 340-8655. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cole?
I have a couple of announcements. The Family First Penfield 5K Challenge will be held on Sunday, September 28th, starting at 9 a.m. from the Penfield Community Center. To register, please go to penrec.org and complete the form. All race details, maps, information will be online. When you pre-register, you can pick up your race number and T-shirt Thursday, September 25th, or Friday, September 26th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Penfield Recreation Office, 1985 Baird Road. And my other announcement is that my monthly chat that I've had for several years will be held Tuesday, September 16th, from 5:30 to 7 in the new book area in the Penfield Library. If you'd like to come over and have a chat and a cup of coffee, talk about any subject matter around Penfield or, I could address or help you with, please stop by. And also, I noticed with the slides, October 4th, with Recycling Day, there wasn't a slide up, but that is the day of the bike drop-off. We have a community bike drop-off every year, and that will be on October 4th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Penfield Community Center.
Great, thank you. Mr. Horowitz?
Nothing
You're
further
good?
tonight.
Okay. We'll move on to additions and deletions to the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make one addition to tonight's agenda. That's Resolution 14T-162.
I second that.
Okay. That is regarding serial bonds, and thank you very much for that. It's been moved and seconded. That will be added at the end of our agenda. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. We have the August 6, 2014 minutes before us. I would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I'd like to move that the minutes of August 6th be approved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Has the board, town clerk, town attorney received any petitions since their last meeting? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to resolution by function. Law and Finance, please.
Authorization to attend New York State Magistrate Court Clerk Conference.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the New York State Magistrate Court Clerk's annual fall conference is scheduled at the Hilton Hotel in Albany, New York on September 28th through October 1st, 2014. Now therefore be it resolved that Penfield Court Clerk Carrie Edgerton and Betsy Wager are hereby authorized to attend the 2014 State Magistrates Court Clerk's annual fall conference in Albany. The funds to attend this conference are included in the 2014 budget and will not exceed $1,550. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing on 2015 preliminary and special districts budget.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that a public hearing on the proposed Town of Penfield 2015 preliminary budget and the 2015 special districts budget be held on Wednesday, October 1st, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. at the Penfield Town Hall. Be it further resolved that the town clerk cause a notice of the public hearing to be published in the official newspaper at least 10 days prior to the hearing. Be it further resolved that the legal notice shall also list a summary of the 2015 budget as required by law. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing to consider design modifications to the incentive zoning application and preliminary and final re-subdivision and site plan approval at 56, 63, 67, and 71 Kings Mill Court in Wyndham Woods subdivision, Section 2, Phase B.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board under Local Law 2 of 2003, known as the Town of Penfield Incentive Zoning Law, to consider preliminary and final re-subdivision and site plan approval to allow the re-subdivisions of lots 213, 214, 215, and 216 within Wyndham Woods subdivision and to create one additional lot to the approved 56-lot subdivision granted by the Town Board in Resolution 11T-092 in February of 2011. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on October 1st, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. on said date to consider the application and to hear all persons interested in said application. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign recreation contracts.
So moved.
Second.
This authorizes the town supervisor to sign 5 recreation contracts, and they're all dealing with different classes that are taking place this fall in Penfield Recreation.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Okay, that takes us to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none. New business, number 162, please.
Authorizing the issuance pursuant to Section 90.10 of the local finance law of refunding bonds of the town of Penfield, New York, to be designated substantially as refunding serial bonds and providing for other matters in relation thereto, and the payment of the bonds be refunded thereby.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town of Penfield has heretofore duly issued $6,025,000 in principal amount of public improvement serial bonds, 2005, such bonds being dated August 1st, 2005, and maturing in annual installments in each of the years 2006 to 2022, both inclusive, called the refund bonds, as more fully described herein. Whereas the refund bonds were authorized pursuant to bond resolution dated February 20th, 2002 and January 5th, 2005, to finance capital improvements consisting of acquisition of land and rights in land and sewer system improvements. Whereas it would be in the public interest to refund all or one or more or portion of one or more of the $3,125,000 in outstanding principal balance of the refunded bonds, such as outstanding principal balance being stated as of date hereof, by the issuance of refunding bonds pursuant to Section 90.10 of the local finance law. Whereas such refunding will result in present value savings in debt service as required by Section 90.1 of the local finance law. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Essentially, what we're doing here is we have some bonds that were callable. There's approximately 8 years left on these bonds. So that duration will stay the same. What we're able to do by the refinancing, we're able to save approximately $140,000 by doing so. So over the next 8 years, anywhere from $16,000 to $19,000 annually will be saved by doing this. And this is a practice that this town has kept a close eye on. Worked very closely with our comptroller and the Bernie Donegan firm. And anytime there's an opportunity to do that, and certainly a significant opportunity to save money for the town by lowering our overall payments, that's the right thing to do for the taxpayers. So with this resolution, this will start that process. And between now and approximately mid-November, there are certain steps that will need to take place leading up to the closing, and that savings will start to be realized in 2015. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes.
We're at public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter? Seeing none. And the business for September 3rd, 2014 Town Board meeting has been completed. I will officially adjourn this meeting at 10:23. Thank you, Penfield TV, and thank you to all those that participated tonight.